Good afternoon and welcome to the July meeting of Full Council. Thank you to everyone for accommodating the earlier start time. I'm sure we're all keen to get home and support England in their World Cup match semi-final against Argentina later this evening. First of all, thank you, Councillor Peatfield, for following some kind of guidance I did say this afternoon about please bring on your England colours, and nice to see Councillor Chambers with an England cup. Oh, there's a few of you. Oh, well. Thank you very much. I'm very nervous about tonight. Anyway, let's move on. So, item 1 is apologies. So, do we have any apologies, please, Councillor Prosser?
Alan Lindsay and Alan Graves may make it. Just depends on the timings.
Okay. Any further, Councillor?
Yes, quite a few. Councillor Sandhu, Councillor Nawaz, Councillor Amin, and because of the early start, there'll be councillors who will be arriving late. Councillor Wilson, Rawson, and also Councillor Bolton.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pearce.
Also Councillor Shanker and Councillor Whitby
Okay.
will probably arriving late.
Councillor Pearce.
Councillor Ralston will be absent, and Councillor Chawala will try and make it within the next hour or so.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, item 2, declarations of Oh, sorry, I do apologise, Councillor Lakin.
Councillors Phil and Celia Ingle won't come.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. None? No? Okay. Moving on to item 3, which is the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 20th May 2026. So we will now move to adopt these. Will somebody move these, please? Councillor Hazelgrave. Seconder. Councillor Peatfield. Any speakers? And all those in favour? Thank you. Item 4. Announcements from the Mayor. I have a small number of announcements to make this evening following an exceptionally busy start to my mayoral year. Owing to the earlier start time of today's meeting, I am aware that several members here won't be in attendance for the start. Given the significance of the item, I therefore intend to defer the consideration of the minute extract relating to the local plan until the last item of the agenda. So since my election in June, it has been a privilege to begin my year in office by representing Derby at almost 50 engagements across the city and county. While I cannot mention them all, the visits have once again demonstrated the remarkable dedication of our volunteers, community organisations, businesses, schools, faith groups and public services. One of the highlights of the past few weeks has been celebrating the 50th anniversary of Derby's twinning with Osnabrück, welcome our friends from Germany and reaffirming a partnership that has strengthened international friendship and an understanding for half a century. I was also honoured to take part in several Armed Forces Days events and receptions recognising the services and sacrifice of our armed forces community, and to present certificates to the new Mayor's cadets as they begin their year supporting my mayoralty. I was pleased to support Carers Week, including the launch of the new Derby and Derbyshire Careers Strategy, recognising the invaluable contribution made by unpaid carers across our communities. Other memorable engagements have included the Windrush Service Thanksgiving, Srebrenica Memorial Day at the Bosnia Centre, the Royal School for the Deaf's Derby Open Day, the annual Derby Ramathon, the annual University Derby Summer Awards, and the Derbyshire Sen Athletics Tournament, which I attended this morning. There's been alongside of a wide variety of community festivals, school events, charity fundraisers, and sporting occasions and citizenship ceremonies. These engagements have provided a wonderful introduction to the role of Mayor, and I have reinforced just how much it is achieved every day by those who give their time, talent and energy to improving the lives of others here in Derby. Finally, it would be a shame of me not to plug some events coming up. I hope members will forgive me. I will be ending this with some appeals for my mayoralty charities. So on Friday, the 21st of August, I will be undertaking a sponsored skydive in the aid of Derbyshire Children's Holiday Centre and the Living Recovery Foundation, with the aim of raising £1,000 to be shared equally between the two charities. I will also be hosting a charity dinner at Cosmo Derby on Thursday the 27th of August, with proceeds all supporting the Living Recovery Foundation. It promises to be an enjoyable evening, bringing together friends, supporters and members of our community in support of a very worthwhile cause. If you are able to support either event, I will be most grateful. Donations to the skydive can be made via the Mayor's Just Giving page, which I will circulate later, and tickets for the charity dinner are available online. Your support will make a real difference to two organisations that do outstanding work in our city in Derby. With any luck, by the time next time we meet, I'll have completed the skydive safely, and I hope to see many of you at the charity dinner a few days later after that. Before we continue, I was saddened to learn the passing of former Mayoress Josie Baxter. Josie served as a Mayoress in 1989 to 1990 and was the wife of former Mackworth councillor Ray Baxter. After Ray's passing in 2020, she moved to live in Malvern to be near her family. I know she is fondly remembered, particularly by members of the Labour group benches. Before we pause for a moment of silence, is there anyone who wishes to speak? Okay then, if I could ask all members to please stand for 1 minute's silence. Thank you very much. Item 5. We now move to statements from members of the Council Cabinet. We have been notified that Councillor Chambers wishes to make statements in relation to the PPO and library services, whilst Councillor Onawa intends to speak on backing our frontline delivering for Derby. As a reminder, statements are not time limited and opposition spokespeople will have the opportunity to respond. However, it will not open to debate from the floor. So, Councillor Chambers, would you like to please go first?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'd like to provide members with an update on our public protection officers and the PPO team. Historically, the service consisted of 20 officers. However, following a 50% reduction in funding inherited from previous budget decisions, the core establishment is now 10 officers. However, in addition to this administration budgeted for an additional 5 officers, taking the team to 15 once fully recruited. Excuse me. At present, we have 4.5 PPOs in post, following 2 officers moving on to new opportunities, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank them for the service and wish them every success in the future. Unfortunately, we've also had 2 dismissals as well. The good news is, though, that 4 new recruits are currently working their notice periods and completing their onboarding process, and they are expected to join us imminently. In addition, shortlisting for the next tranche of recruitment will take place later this week, with around 20 applications received so far. I would also like to place on record my thanks to the community safety team. They continue to work incredibly hard under demanding and challenging circumstances, and I request members to recognise that commitment before criticising the PPO service, whether internally or publicly. Such criticism has had an impact on team morale, despite staff going above and beyond to deliver the service expected of them. I've also noticed that some requests from members fall outside the remit of the PPO role. To help address this, I've requested a dedicated councillor training session on the responsibilities of public protection officers. I would also encourage members to watch the new Day in the Life of a PPO series of videos, which provides a helpful overview of the role and its responsibilities. Finally, I ask all members to submit PPO-related requests via the generic PPO email inbox, rather than contacting individual PPOs or officers directly. This streamlined process ensures requests are managed efficiently, prioritised appropriately, and nothing falls through the cracks. I would also like to provide members with an update on libraries. In 2023, this administration made a clear pledge to keep our 10 community-managed libraries open. In May 2025, we went a step further by making the decision not to outsource those libraries. The decision was not simply about preserving a service, it was about investing in its future. I'm really sorry. It's my hay fever, I know. I'm delighted to say that our libraries have gone from strength to strength. By not outsourcing the libraries, we have been able to strengthen, support and invest in them, ensuring they remain thriving community assets at the heart of our communities. We have invested in our incredible volunteers by providing dedicated training and access to the library management system. Their commitment continues to be remarkable, and I report we have 163 active volunteers currently supporting our libraries, and a further 15 applications currently going through the application process. We have also invested in new IT, which is being rolled out across all libraries, and every library has received a delivery of brand new books, something that hasn't happened for years. Alongside these improvements, our libraries are hosting an increasing number of community groups and clubs, with many more currently in discussion with the service. Our partnership work is also delivering real benefits. Derby College has established a presence at Symphony Library, delivering free English, maths and a variety of other courses from Monday to Friday, helping residents develop new skills and improve opportunities. We are also in discussions about expanding similar partnership initiatives across several other libraries. We have also established a Friends of Library group who meet quarterly at the Council House. A representative from all 15 libraries attends with officers, the library managers and myself. This was to create a streamlined approach for communication, an opportunity to share best practice and ideas, and to develop one big team. Our library staff, officers and volunteers have fully embraced the National Year of Reading, and the response from our schools has been exceptional. Of the 69 Derby primary schools contacted about the project, 56 have responded. Of those, 49 requested library card packs for distribution to pupils, while 35 asked for packs for every pupil in the school rather than just reception in Year 6 as originally proposed. As a result, an incredible 12,330 library card packs have been delivered to schools for children and their families. The 7 schools that did not request packs already had alternative arrangements in place, either through organised visits to their local library or through library staff delivering assemblies, storytelling sessions and information about how libraries work. This demonstrates the strength of the relationships our library teams have built with schools and the value that schools on their local libraries. Excuse me. The next natural step in our journey was to extend access by opening our libraries on Saturdays. And I'm delighted to update members that this is now being delivered through a phased rollout. Blaygreaves, Allistry, Spondon and Allington libraries are now open on Saturdays, with Allington also extending its weekday opening hours. Chelliston Library will begin Saturday opening from the 18th of July, followed by Springwood on the 1st of August. This means that in just 4 months, we will have achieved Saturday opening at 6 of our 10 community libraries. Finally, I would like to place on record my sincere thanks to every library member, every member of library staff, every officer and every volunteer. None of these achievements would have been possible without your commitment, passion, creativity, and I have to say, your patience with a very impatient cabinet member. I would also like to thank the Oakwood Ward councillors for the support they have given to Springwood Library and for their generous neighbourhood board funding, which has provided additional adult and children's books. along with fantastic beanbags and cushions, to create an even more welcoming environment. It was also wonderful to see Springwood Library and its volunteers showcasing and promoting the library at Oakfest. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Come on, England.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Hassel, as the second largest group, is there any nominated spokesman? Councillor Matthew Eyre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thank the Cabinet Member for the statement and for the acknowledgement of Springwood Library as well. There's a fantastic group there. It was great to give some neighbourhood board funding to them, and I'd encourage all neighbourhood board chairs who have any of the libraries in their ward, have a chat with them, see where you can fill some additional things and provide some additional equipment or books to them and have that conversation. It's a great thing to do. I thank the Cabinet Member for the statement. There's some good headlines in there. There's some investigating and some things we're looking at. I think we'll take some time to have a look at where things have gone and how things are going. I think there's some cause maybe as well for some of the scrutiny review boards to have a look at it and how it's going and make some suggestions as well. I was really happy as well to see in the papers that went to the Children and Young People's Board recently, a lot of talk about turning the libraries into the community hubs, bringing more of those organisations in there. I first used the community hub terminology in 2022. It's really great to hear the Cabinet catching up with that and implementing some of the things we talked about at the time. But again, just to put on record from our group, our thanks to all the frontline officers and to the volunteers as well. This couldn't be delivered without their work, and we'd like to put our thanks to them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Prosser, is there anything from your group?
Yeah, just very briefly. The PPO report is quite concerning. Obviously, originally, I think it was 2021 PPOs we're meant to have. Can we just refresh us on how many PPOs the target is for the city at the moment? Because we're down to 4.5, aren't we? What is the target of how many PPOs that the city wants at the moment?
Can I just say, this is obviously not a debate, but that's a question obviously you raised up, but I think after full council, if Councillor Chambers can give you that specific answer, that would be great. But I don't want to get drawn in a debate on that. Thank you. Councillor Kerr, is anyone in your group? And Councillor Lakin? Oh, Councillor
I'd love to make a comment, but we haven't got a library in Little Ever, so we'll just leave it there.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Lakin? No. Okay then, so Councillor Onawaha, that's your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll just warn you, as I did the previous mayor, that whenever you mispronounce I'm just hoping you mispronounce it so I can get free beer off you. But and I'd like to also echo Councillor Chambers' sentiments and yours as well about the England team. And we're hoping that the boys was proud today. Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to update the Council on the work taking place across my portfolio of street pride parks and leisure. Before I do, I want to place on record my sincere thanks to the hardworking men and women who deliver these services every single day. Whether they are emptying bins before dawn, cutting grass in the height of summer, repairing vehicles behind the scenes, maintaining our parks, or supporting residents in our leisure centres, they work in all weather, often without recognition, to keep Derby moving. They are the backbone of many of the services we rely upon, and they do deserve our gratitude. Much of this work done by the teams represented in my portfolio is not glamorous. In fact, the best measure of success is often when nobody notices, because services are simply working. But when things go wrong, residents notice immediately and rightly expect us to respond. And so I want to begin with an issue that has captured some attention lately: bins off streets. A few months after I became a cabinet member and after years of listening to residents' concerns, I made a commitment to get bins off our streets. But as anyone who has been in this position knows, the wheels of government turn quite slowly. So I opted for a pilot implementation of this policy. This pilot gave us the evidence base we needed with which to make a case for citywide implementation. And after a period of time fine-tuning our approach, I am pleased that our Bins Off Streets program has now formally begun with the launch of an 8-week consultation on a citywide public spaces protection order. I encourage residents to take part in this consultation by visiting the Let's Talk Derby page. I would like to acknowledge the excellent work of our communities team, whose tireless work on this has been instrumental in getting us to this point. Our waste and recycling services continue to perform well despite exceptionally challenging weather conditions these past few weeks. Collection teams have maintained strong performance by prioritizing black bin, recycling and food waste collections during periods of extreme heat, whilst ensuring staff welfare remain paramount. I am particularly pleased with the continued success of our food waste service. In its first 3 months, almost 1,450 tons of food waste have been collected, demonstrating both the commitment of our crews and the willingness of Derby residents to embrace more sustainable waste disposal. I also want to thank our refuse, recycling, and food waste crews. During periods of extreme heat, they continued delivering essential services with professionalism, resilience, and commitment. Our community waste days promised in our Labour Manifesto continue to grow from strength to strength. The first 4 events collected over 15 tons of waste, almost 2 tons of recycling, and significant quantities of reusable materials diverted from disposal. I was very pleased to see posts from Oakwood and Alice Street councillors celebrating the success of these events, which would not have been successful without the dedication of our frontline teams and officers, and of course with the neighbourhood team working with councillors as well to find out where best these services are needed. So I would like to thank councillors as well for their input across the board. Behind the scenes, significant improvements are also taking place within fleet services. The Traffic Commissioner has approved changes to our operation license, increasing the number of vehicles we are authorized to operate, and approving our new highways hub as an operating center. Alongside these, we are introducing new fleet management systems and workshop improvements that will modernize the service. Much of the work undertaken by our fleet and workshop teams go unnoticed by the public because it happens behind the scenes. Yet, without them, none of our frontline services would function. I thank them for their professionalism. Turning to parks and green spaces, I am delighted that we continue to invest in our city's outdoor spaces. This year alone, we have delivered new play areas at Queensferry Gardens, Knightsbridge Recreational Ground, and Stockbrook Recreation Ground, alongside new outdoor fitness facilities in Alverston Park and Vicarage Road Recreation Ground. Looking ahead, we have an ambitious program of further improvements, all informed by consultations with local residents and councillors. I also want to recognize our parks team who worked tirelessly throughout the year to keep our green spaces safe, welcoming, and enjoyable for residents. Members will also be aware of work taking place to improve lighting in our parks. And on a side note, Mr. Mayor, once we get this sorted, I'm happy to know that Councillor Eyre will move on to other emails to me about this. But we've had good conversations in the past about this, and he knows that we've been working on this. Last year, following the failure of a solar lighting column in Oakwood Park, further investigations revealed that a number of similar columns had been installed with inadequate foundations. Safety had to come first. As a precaution, 15 of the 22 columns were removed, while 7 were replaced in Clemson's Park, Osmaston Park, and on Staunton Avenue within the available budget. This year, we have allocated a further 28,000 through the Parks Capital Program to continue this work with particular focus on Oakwood Park. Alongside these improvements, the Parks and Green Space Services is developing a wider asset management strategy for our parks, including lighting. This will ensure that we assess, maintain, and invest in our assets in a planned, safe, and sustainable way. I would also like to thank our parks officers and technical team for the professionalism they have shown throughout this work. While replacing infrastructure is less visible than opening new facility, it is every bit as important in ensuring our parks remain safe, welcoming, and enjoyable for everyone, especially women and girls who may go through these parks and spaces at night. I'd love to shine a light on another achievement in our parks department. Derby has successfully achieved 6 Green Flag Awards, including Derby Arboretum retaining its Green Heritage Site accreditation. In addition, 8 sites have successfully won Green Flag Community Awards, including the new Spondon Sensory Garden achieving its first-year award. This shows what can be achieved when parks and green spaces are properly supported and managed, working alongside our communities. This international quality mark celebrates the high standard of our parks and is a true testament to the incredible work and dedication of the teams who tirelessly care for them, ensuring everyone in Derby can enjoy these beautiful spaces. As we enter the final few days before the summer break, I know that many families want to enjoy, together with their children, the many attractions in our parks and green spaces. And on hot days like these, I'm sure that Councillor Hassel would love to know that Marketing Paddock Pool offers families a refreshing spot to cool down and enjoy moments of bonding. This is why the team has worked very hard since just after the May half-term holidays to ensure that much-needed works at the pool are carried out so that it can be opened for the summer holidays. Mr. Mayor, I am pleased to report that remedial works are being completed right now, and the pool is scheduled to reopen in time for the school summer holidays. Thank you to the officers and contractors who have worked at pace to make that happen. Now, to arguably the one thing that we all really, really want to talk about, grass cutting. I have seen the complaints from residents, and I understand the frustration of councillors. And rather than insult your intelligence by offering any excuses, I will be honest about the challenges we have faced. Now, while changing weather patterns have undoubtedly affected maintenance schedules, but public service must adapt to that reality. Climate change is now a part of our daily reality, and we cannot use it as an excuse anymore, if ever we did. It is true that between 2021 and 2022 and 2023-24, more than 289,000 was removed from parks and green spaces, resulting in the loss of the equivalent of 9 full-time posts. That is why, recognizing the importance these reductions had on our city, this Labour administration invested an additional £200,000 to begin rebuilding capacity. The positive impact of this was invested last year, and we saw, and that is why last year we saw that we had a smooth grass cutting season. However, the significant issue that we have witnessed this season has been staffing shortages within our grounds maintenance team, with recruitment proving difficult despite active campaigns to attract new staff. And I'm sure a few councillors have seen me in some videos online trying to attract new staff to our ground maintenance team. But rather than standing still, we have acted. Even though it was not our first or preferred option, contractors have now been brought in to support grass cutting operations, beginning with our cemeteries, and residents are seeing improvements over the coming weeks. I also want to thank our ground maintenance teams. Working outdoors in increasingly challenging weather conditions is no easy task, yet they continue to give everything they can for our city. My responsibility is to ensure that they have the resources and support they need to succeed. Across every area of my portfolio, our objective is straightforward: cleaner streets, better parks, reliable waste services, modern infrastructure, and leisure opportunities that improve quality of life. And just to touch on leisure, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy that our Derby Arena and our other leisure facilities are welcoming lots of visitors. And although I can't, and I really, really want to mention this, but I can't, we have teams, international teams, coming to train at Derby Arena because they've recognized just how world-class our facilities are. And in fact, these I can mention, we've had a team from Ghana touch down today, and I want to thank especially Wayne Seals and Daniel Burton, who drove all the way to London to convince Team Ghana that Derby is the right place to train. You know, so this is a testament again to the will and the grit put in by our teams. Finally, Mr. Mayor, I want to end where I began. Behind every one of these services is a member of staff who has chosen public service too often on notice when things go well, first to be blamed when they don't. But despite it all, we must learn to celebrate our workforce. We must learn to celebrate people like Richard Napton, who, after winning the Here for Derby Award for his dedication to keeping the city spotless, was invited to St. James's Palace to meet King Charles in recognition of his hard work. All across my portfolio, Mr. Mayor, and all over the city, there are people like Richard, who not only work for our council, but are our residents, who we as councillors represent. We cannot be seen to talking them down. In closing, I want to thank this council. I want this council to know that I see the dedication, and I want every member of our Street Pride, Parks, Leisure, Fleet, and Waste Management teams for what they do for the people of Derby. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Orha. See,
That's 1 point, Mr. Mayor.
right. This is going to be a very expensive year for me, just like it was for Councillor Potter as well, was it not? But you was pretty simple. Or did you get there in the end? I will get better, Undokwe. Anyone from the Conservative group to speak? Councillor Eyre, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few meetings ago, I gave the Cabinet an opportunity to shut me up, and now I keep getting name-dropped in speeches and being told to speak again, so we really need to make our mind up what we want me to do. I thank the Cabinet member for the statement. Again, we'll take some time to go through the details of it all. It was a very clever use of time, because that went way over the 5 minutes you would have just had in response to the motion later on, so it was a very clever use of time. But as we've said before, too often our group feel kept in the dark on things. And it would be great if statements like that could come in advance of issues rather than after. In advance of grass not being cut, in advance of things not happening, those statements would be a lot more helpful than after. And the praise that our frontline teams deserve, and they do deserve that praise, does not necessarily negate the issues that residents are reporting to us on a larger scale than I've known for quite some time. I'll save most of my contributions on this to the motion later, but there was one telling point of the statement, which, Councillor Noha, was when you said, when things go wrong. Surely it should be if things go wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there anyone from the Reform group? No? Lib Dems? No? Councillor Lakin? No? Okay, then. That concludes item 5. So moving on to item 6. Next, we will hear responses to public questions directed to Cabinet members and committee chairs. 5 have been received prior to the deadline. When asking your questions, please ensure your microphone is switched on and that you speak clearly. Please remember that any supplementary question must relate directly to the written reply you have been given and should be concise. I believe we only have one attendee, which is related to question B, and it is Steve Dunning who is asking supplementary questions. So, Mr. Dunning, if you could give your supplementary question, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Peatfield, for the response. Mr. Ward-Brown couldn't make it today, so I'm here in his place. I'm chair of Derby Arts and Theatre Association. The supplementary question is this. Given the fact that we are likely to have a new Prime Minister in a few days, and given the fact that Andy Burnham will almost certainly have new spending priorities, how concerned are you that the excessive delays in progressing the Guildhall scheme could result in any unspent or uncommitted Levelling Up Fund grant being clawed back, thus putting the whole project in jeopardy? Thank you.
Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, and thank you, Chris. It's really good to see you again. We've had many conversations over the Guildhall over the years, and I've always listened very carefully to the amateur dramatics community. I'm not concerned about the new the Prime Minister-elect, if you like. I know that his priorities are Labour priorities. They are priorities that keep money in communities, and actually he's even more behind devolution than the current outgoing Prime Minister. So we've already had the £20 million confirmed that it is ours. It's signed, sealed, and delivered. So there's no concerns going forward that we're going to lose that. I was actually in the Guildhall. So yesterday, it might have been Monday, it's been a long week, to take a look at the work that's going on there. I'm really, really pleased to report that, it's progressing. I was actually able to touch the ceiling, which was amazing, and there'll be a bit of news and good news and a video coming out so that everybody can actually get to have a look inside before it changes and is a brand new, old space for all of the community to use. Thank you.
Thank you, and that concludes questions from the public. So item 7, questions relating to Derbyshire Fire Authority or Derby Homes, none have been received. So we move on to item 8, which is questions from Council Cabinet members. We have 3 received. all from Councillor Kerr. So I'll start off with question E, Councillor Kerr, and I'm not even going to bother, I'm just going to say Ndukwe, if you don't mind. I've already got a mental block in my head. I'm going to have to reset myself for that. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. Given that there are well-documented safety risks to human health and wider biodiversity from the continued use of glyphosate, what work is being done to prevent weed growth rather than treating the weeds after they've grown? And I ask this particularly as it's particularly relevant as currently glyphosate use may no longer be licensed after December this year.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr, for that. The team is currently working on wider ground maintenance strategy to guide our business as usual, including weed, and that it will be part of that. And I'll be happy to share that with you once that's done.
Thank you. So question F is from Councillor Kerr to Councillor Swan on Gully cleansing update. Do you have a supplementary question?
And thank you for the reply. Although it gives no indication of actual performance or whether 2 gully wagons are sufficient, or if we potentially have a staffing or training issues to address, who should I speak to for a fuller answer?
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Please feel free to email me and I can respond to your queries personally. Thank you.
Okay, and to complete the hat-trick, Councillor Kerr, question G, for football theme related, transport investment to Councillor Swan.
I thought it was a hat-trick too, particularly as nobody else has scored this meeting. I presume from this answer that the City Council is not seeking to coordinate responses about transport, and particularly active transport needs in Derby. Is that right?
You obviously haven't really read the answer, but I will refer back to this, is that already Mayor Clare has already come out with regards to her opinion on the lack of investment in Derby. So, and we do have a motion today that we will talk about this further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that concludes item 8. Item 9, of course, will be moved to the end of the agenda, so that means I'll move on to item 10, which is a minute extract of the Audit and Governance Committee held on the 24th of June 2026. Councillor Wright, as Vice Chair of the committee throughout the previous municipal year, will you move the minute, please?
I'll move the minute, thank you, Mr Mayor.
And can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Hazelgrave. Is there any speakers? Would you like to speak on that, Councillor Wright?
Yeah, just briefly, just to thank all the councillors and particularly independent members of the committee and Councillor Morgan McGeehan for their commitment to good governance in Derby. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other speakers? No, then if I can move to the vote, please, by a show of hands, all those in favour? Thank you, and any against? No? Okay then. So that moves on to item 11. That's the minute extract of the Standards Committee held on the 30th of June 2026. Councillor Prosser, will you address the council, please, and move the minute? Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to move the minute. I mean, thank you. It's been a good year in the Standards Committee, and hopefully we can keep it that quiet next year.
Okay, and then can I take a seconder? Yeah, okay, brilliant. Thank you, Councillor Atwell. And then any further speakers? Okay, then all those in favour? Any against? Okay, thank you. So items 12 to 14, so we'll now consider 3 notices of motion received ahead of this evening's meeting. So item 12 is safeguarding children in relation to puberty blocker trial. That is moved by Councillor Prosser.
Thank you. So the motion today is a very emotive one, and the vote in Parliament will have passed many of you by. I have therefore brought this today to raise awareness and highlight concerns on matters that will greatly affect children in this city. Much of this is lifted straight from the CAS report, and I will quickly summarise my fears at the end. It is important that today's discussion is positive and in the interest of children, not driven by increasingly toxic ideology and noise, and I would like it to remain that way. As I've said before, I worked in national statistics on public health. and I believe that this is a prime example of why my work there existed, and it's why this piqued my interest. The report forward explains that it often takes many years before strongly positive research findings are incorporated into practice, but that quite the reverse happened in the field of gender care for children. Based on a single Dutch study which suggested that puberty blockers may improve psychological well-being for a narrowly defined group of children with gender incongruence, the practice spread at pace to other countries. This was closely followed by a greater readiness to start hormones in mid-teens, and the extension of this approach to a wider group of adolescents who would not have met the inclusion criteria for the original study. Some practitioners abandoned normal clinical approaches to holistic assessment, which has meant that this group of young people have been exceptionalised compared to other young people with similarly complex presentations. In 2011, the UK trialled the use of puberty blockers in an early intervention study. Preliminary results from the early intervention study in 2015 to 2016 did not demonstrate benefit. The results of the study were formally published until 2020, at which time it showed that there was a lack of positive measurable outcomes. Despite this, from 2014, puberty blockers moved from a research-only protocol to being available in routine clinical practice and were given to a broader group of patients who would not have met inclusion criteria of the protocol. The University of York's programme of work has shown that there continues to be a lack of high-quality evidence in this area, and disappointingly, attempts to improve the evidence base have been thwarted by a lack of cooperation from gender services. Over this time, referrals for assistance have rocketed from less than 50 in 2009 to around 2,000 by 2016. I've been unable to obtain the current numbers, but I expect to be much higher now. The review explored the reasons for the increase in referrals and why this increase has disproportionately been seen in birth-registered females presenting in adolescence, and the implications of this for the service. This is a different cohort from that looked at by earlier studies. Among referrals, there is greater complexity of presentation with high levels of neurodiversity and/or co-occurring mental health issues, and a higher prevalence than in the general population of adverse childhood experiences and looked after children. The increase in referrals and change in case mix is also being seen internationally and is extremely concerning. The systematic review undertaken by the University of York found multiple studies demonstrating that puberty blockers exert their intended effect in suppressing puberty, and also that bone density is compromised during puberty suppression. However, no changes in gender dysphoria or body satisfaction were demonstrated. There was insufficient, inconsistent evidence about the effects of suppression on psychological or psychosocial well-being, cognitive development, cardiometabolic risk, or fertility. Moreover, given that the vast majority of young people started on puberty blockers proceed from puberty blockers to hormones, there is no evidence that puberty blockers buy time to think, and some concern that they may change the trajectory of psychosexual and gender identity development. So my quick summary. The review shows that we've been trialling this for years, and many countries have been doing research. These studies have already failed to show any benefit, and still children were treated as if it was mainstream and acceptable. This lack of evidence and need for research is not because of a lack of trying or science, but an unwillingness to admit the truth and concerted efforts to bury the reality. These drugs are not helpful, they are demonstratively harmful, and otherwise healthy children being subjected to bone weakness and other potential long-term side effects. Further research is therefore not required after as a decade of such research across the globe, the results are in. Children are our most precious asset and the future of us all. Knowingly doing harm is not an option. I have one further point. From my history in public health, I've worked on a team that was tasked to identify such events as logarithmic changes in health conditions. The question we need to hear asked is not just how we can positively treat people who present in this way, but what has caused this. There are key markers here to suggest to me that apart from the social aspects of change that have occurred in the last few decades, there is also likely a physical trigger for this meteoric rise in cases that should be our focus and subject to investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prosser. Councillor Falk, as seconder, you may wish to speak now, or would you like to reserve your right? Reserve, okay. Any speakers, please? I think I'll be going straight back to you, Councillor Falk.
I'd just like to say I find it unbelievable that fellow councillors are unwilling to request the government to explore the matter fully. How many of you are parents or grandparents in this chamber? And you would not like to see this performed on your children or grandchildren. So we have to proceed with caution. That's basically it. Thank you.
Okay then, if there's no speakers, Councillor Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say plainly where I stand on this, because I think this chamber deserves plain speaking rather than careful hedging. I do not believe children under the age of 16 should be given puberty blockers unless there is serious, clear, established medical reason for it. I say that not as a clinician, but as a father and as someone who believes children at that age cannot and do not fully know their own minds yet. That is not a criticism of them. It is simply what being a child means. It is precisely why we, as the adults responsible for their welfare, are supposed to allow them room to develop before we intervene irreversibly in that development. I do not think this is a fringe view. It is the conclusion of the CAS review, a 4-year independent clinical review commissioned by NHS England, which found the evidence for puberty blockers in adolescents remarkably weak, and found that clinicians cannot reliably tell which children will carry a gender incongruent identity into adulthood and which will not. If this country's own review cannot tell us that with confidence, I do not see how we can call it settled science, and I do not see how we can call it safe to proceed on the current terms. Here is what I find genuinely hard to reconcile. This same Parliament this year decided that under 16s cannot be trusted to manage a social media account without a state stepping in to protect them, because their judgment, their impulse control, and their capacity to weigh long-term consequences against short-term pressure are not yet fully formed. How can you hold that view about a TikTok account and then turn around and say an 11-year-old is capable of consenting to medical intervention that may affect their bone density, their fertility, and their neurological development for the rest of their lives? One of these positions is wrong. Frankly, it's bonkers to protect a child from a phone app while exposing them to hormonal intervention we admit we do not fully understand. This is not a new question to Parliament either. On the 23rd of June this year, the House of Parliament Commons debated a motion calling on the government to halt the Pathways trial altogether. That motion was defeated, and a division record shows that the 6 Derbyshire MPs, John Whitby, Toby Perkins, Adam Thompson, Samantha Niblett, Catherine Atkinson and Baggy Shanker, all voted against pausing the trial. I raise that not to attack them personally, but because it means Parliament has, for now, closed this door. If Parliament will not press pause, then Derby has to press for answers. I want to be honest about what this motion does and does not do. It does not ban anything. It does not override clinicians. It asks this council to say, on behalf of the children and families of Derby, that we are not comfortable with the current position. Children deserve compassion, and they deserve support without question. But compassion is not the same as haste, and support does not require us to skip past uncertainty as if it were not there. I ask colleagues across this chamber, whatever your view on the wider debate, to back this motion, back the question that we have already put to our MPs, and back the precautionary approach for children who cannot yet advocate fully for themselves. And I commend this motion to the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Any further speakers? Councillor Kerr.
There's one group here who clearly have done their research in what they're putting forward. I did some Googling, and it seems that nationally there is considerable concern about this that is already being addressed at a parliamentary level. Personally, I have no particular knowledge about beauty blockers, about child development. I have no particular expertise in medical research. And I think that is likely to be true for the majority of the people in this chamber. And I'm therefore doubtful that it is actually for us to be pushing our MPs to be taking any particular view on this matter, or rather than letting those who have expertise to be making those cautious judgments to make sure that if we are going to do anything, there is relevant research at a level that can be looked at with the sort of level of authority that the speakers and the motion have said is needed. I think we have to trust the process in the same way as we use the bureaucracy within this council to take things forward. And I would therefore propose that under CP 59A we withdrew this motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kerr. Do I have a seconder of the withdrawal of that motion? Councillor Peatfield? And then I'll go to a vote.
Yeah, back to Councillor Prosser.
Okay, Councillor Prosser, do you... Okay, just got some advice from Alex.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Council Procedural CP 56 applies to the member who has moved the motion, so they may propose after a motion has been moved and seconded before Council that the motion is withdrawn on the basis of the debate. Unfortunately, I don't believe that. So CP 59A is our motions which may be moved during the debate. CP 56 being one of them, i.e. to withdraw a motion. The only councillor who CP 56 is open to is Councillor Prosser as the mover of the motion. CP 59 details motions that may be moved without prior notice, i.e. during the debate. CP 56 is one of those, if that makes sense.
I reference CP 59A, which I believe says when a motion is under debate, no other motion may be moved except the following procedural motion, A, to withdraw a motion. So I was going to ask for it to be withdrawn.
Okay. So after consulting and understanding the CP ruling from Alex, obviously I can't proceed forward with a withdrawal of notice of motion on that. That can only come from Councillor Prosser, which I probably understand that he may not wish to. So I'll move on to Councillor Peatfield. Would you like to speak on it? Yep.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, we just don't intend to engage in the wider debate that sits behind this motion. And I don't believe that this council chamber is the appropriate place to do it. We're none of us experts in this room, and this matter before us concerns a national NHS clinical trial overseen through national healthcare, research and regulatory structures. It's not a Derby City Council service, it's not a council decision, and it's not a council responsibility. I do note that the trial has been reviewed through the National Research and Ethics process, including approval by the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency and the Health Research Authority. You know, these are people with knowledge and information far beyond our understanding. It's not a Derby-specific issue, but a matter of national policy and clinical governance. Members may hold a range of very strongly held views on this subject, entirely legitimate. However, they can be expressed through political parties, through campaigns, MPs, ministers, consultations and Parliament itself. Whatever position members may take on the subject of this motion, I'd suggest it falls well out of the remit of this authority, so we won't participate in the wider debate. And can I suggest we move to the vote, Mr Mayor?
Okay, before we move to the vote, I've got to go to...
CP 457, Councillor Prosser has the right to...
Yes, Councillor Prosser, as proposed of the motion, would you like to summarise?
That's fine, thank you, we'll leave it there.
Okay then, so we move now to the vote. So by show of hands, all those in favour? Okay. And all those against? The motion is lost. Okay then, moving on to item 13, which is protecting the A38 Derby Junction scheme. Councillor Hazel, as proposer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and welcome to your place in our first meeting of the year. You're looking resplendent in that chain. Mr Mayor, Derby wants, needs and deserves investment. The reason we're here debating this afternoon, actually, is that the promise of the funding that we should have is in jeopardy, Mr Mayor. And I would like to briefly say credit where it's due to the MCA Mayor, Mayor Claire Ward, on her response to this, to the government. It's not an easy thing, rebutting your own government. We've all been there. Governments don't always get it right. I've said this many times. And in this case, they are not getting it right, Mr Mayor. The A38 is decades old now, and has been a scheme we've been longing for, in able to unlock the potential of both of our local economy and to allow for the capacity in the network for the houses that have been built. And the houses that have been built, Mr Mayor, were built on the premise that these junction improvements were to be delivered. We just cannot simply have one without the other. Now, I understand, Mr Mayor, there is quite a lot of environmental concern around these improvements, which I fully appreciate. However, what I would say, Mr Mayor, is that the noise made around the A38 improvements are not the same that I hear when we're digging up fields and our green wedges and spaces to build houses. And like I say, you cannot have one without the other. The reason that our funding has been put in jeopardy, Mr Mayor, is that our outgoing Prime Minister saw it fit to pick the low-hanging fruit and put some defence money from that. Now, I say defence is absolutely important. No one would disagree with that. But I think the choice between one and the other is a false choice. We shouldn't be having to make that choice between defence and investment and infrastructure. They are not on the same stage, Mr Mayor. It is disingenuous, in my view, of the outgoing Prime Minister to throw in a grenade and walk out the room and leave Derby wanting the investment that it so badly needs. We all know the importance of building more houses. If these improvements do not happen, we already have more houses than the current network can cope with. If the government's really determined on building more, and thousands more houses, Mr Mayor, these improvements must go ahead. I appreciate it's a bitter pill to swallow, and I am the biggest advocate of trees and green spaces and all them things. And I'm sure we've got the expertise out there that can mitigate this and plan this so that impact is as less as it can be. However, we cannot simply say we don't need this project anymore. To say otherwise is completely doing an injustice to our residents, Mr Mayor. I would rewind your thoughts back to October of last year when the government sort of reignited the timeline on this project, Mr Mayor, and all of the local elected representatives at a government level were out in force with photographs and probably empty folders and clipboards showing their support for this, Mr. Mayor. But on a serious note, at that point, no one was asking for consultation. No one was asking if we should choose between defence or infrastructure. It is because a government's poor decision has led us to this point. As I've said, Derby wants, needs and deserves its investment. And I hope we can all get behind this motion this evening and show a strong support for our residents and Derby and the East Midlands. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Councillor Matthew Holmes, would you like to speak now or reserve your
No, I think, Mr. Mayor, I'll speak now if that's okay.
Yes, please. Yeah.
I think, Mr. Mayor, by upgrading these key junctions around Derby, we can make journeys safer, smoother and more predictable for drivers while keeping our local economy moving and growing. And they're not my words. They reflect the position expressed by the Cabinet Member for Transport, Councillor Carmel Swan, in late March, I believe, following the DfT's scheme timeline announcement. And that really matters because I believe it was actually a rare time, if not the only time, she'd spoken publicly in any meaningful way in support of the scheme. Now, happy to stand corrected if that's not the case, but that is my impression of all of the debates we've had and questions I've had in this chamber and in other meetings that I've been present as well when it's been discussed. And the fact that this is a national scheme funded centrally does not absolve this council of its responsibility to champion, as it had done for many decades until recent years, in my view. Local authorities across the country have a duty to champion and lobby for large strategic infrastructure that benefits their residents, even when they don't control delivery. Silence and lukewarm engagement or lack of support sends a signal. And that's exactly why we've repeatedly pressed the Labour leadership for their stance, because when local political leadership fails to get fully behind a project like this, it weakens the case in Westminster. Now, for many communities across Derby, this is not some abstract infrastructure debate. It's about promises made to residents. And as Councillor Hassel has alluded to, over the last decade, Mickleover, like other areas, some other areas, has seen massive housing growth. Large developments were granted planning permission despite strong local concerns on the clear understanding that the A38 Derby Junction scheme would deliver mitigation. Residents were told, yes, there will be more houses, but the A38 upgrades will ease the pressure on our roads. And that was a social contract, in my view. And now we face the real prospect that the government may cancel the scheme. I think it's likely they will. After years of public consultation and technical work, legal challenges and millions spent, the goalposts have suddenly moved. And again, following on from what my colleague Councillor Hassel has said, cancelling the scheme will not stop future housing. Derby City, South Derbyshire, Amber Valley councils continue with their new local plans. More on that later. Land promoters and developers are and will keep targeting areas near the current A38 infrastructure. So more homes are coming, but the promised road capacity is not. So the result will be greater pressure on our already strained local roads, longer journey times, more rat running, worsening air quality and declining quality of life for the very people who were assured this infrastructure was coming. So it's not sustainable, it's not responsible, it confirms what many residents fear, that our planning system is broken. Housing is approved on the promise of infrastructure, only for that promise to be quietly dropped once the houses are built. This, in my view, and many of my colleagues' view, is not a luxury project. It's an essential strategic infrastructure project. It serves Derby, the East Midlands, and connects us to the national motorway network. It supports jobs, supports supply chains, and the efficient movement of people and goods. To cancel it now would just simply be unfair. It places unacceptable strain on communities that have already done their part and constrains our development as a city. And that's why this council must send a clear message. The A38 Junction Improvement Scheme is not optional nor expendable. The government must honour the years of planning, consultation and investment, decisions already made. I urge every member to support this motion. Let's speak with one voice and tell the government that Derby will not accept this betrayal. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have an amendment.
Okay. If we could just wait a few minutes whilst the amendment is circulated. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Peatfield, if you can move the amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Hassel may be surprised to hear that I don't disagree with him on many of this. Derby wants, needs and deserves investment. We can both be aligned on that. I'll go further. The East Midlands wants, needs and deserves investments, and that is why I'm proposing this amendment. I recognise the concerns in this motion. Infrastructure, economic growth and housing, they all matter, and growth must be matched by proper investment. But if we want government to listen, we must be clear, this is not just a Derby issue, it's an East Midlands issue. Since this motion was submitted, Mayor Clare, in fact before this motion was submitted, Mayor Clare brought together political leaders, MPs, businesses, universities, trade unions and civic institutions to oppose the loss of strategic investment in our region. This is not a one-party campaign. It has support across the political spectrum, across local government and across the region. And of course, the A38 and the A46 do affect all of us. We all travel these roads. That includes MPs, council leaders and group leaders across the East Midlands, including Robert Jenrick MP, Alex Dale, Sam Smith, Mick Barton from Reform UK, and leaders from Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire, Lincolnshire, Northamptonshire and Rutland. The entirety of the East Midlands councils supported the Mayor. That matters. And whatever our individual views on the A38 scheme, a united regional voice is more likely to be heard than Derby acting alone. The original motion asks Derby to send letters. Our amendment asks Derby to join a regional coalition. That is a stronger position. The amendment also reflects the Mayor's wider point that the East Midlands has historically received less infrastructure investment than many other regions, and losing planned investment now would be a serious setback. And that is where our focus should be. Not on whether any single road scheme is beyond criticism, and not on whether every member agrees with every detail, but on whether the East Midlands should lose major investment without a strong challenge. Because if investment is withdrawn from our region, that has consequences beyond a single junction or scheme. It affects economic confidence, it affects connectivity, it affects inward investment, and it affects how government views the East Midlands when future funding decisions are made. And there's another important element within the amendment. If government is reconsidering the future of this scheme, we can't deny it and just shout into the wind. We have to then ask, government should also ask the people of Derby what they think. Many of the consultations that informed early decisions took place years ago, and Derby has changed. Housing numbers have changed. Our economy has changed. Travel patterns have changed. And public opinion may well have changed too. We know how divided Derby is on this issue alone. So it seems entirely reasonable that before any final decision is taken, local residents, businesses and stakeholders should have the opportunity to express their current views. And that is not about supporting any particular outcome. It's about ensuring that decisions are informed by up-to-date evidence and current public sentiment. And I simply say this. If members believe Derby residents continue to support the scheme, then there should be no objection to asking them. The consultation that the government has called for should be meaningful and inclusive of the public. It should not simply ask whether people are for or against the current A38 scheme. It should ask that if it's still the right plan for Derby, or if government changes or withdraws it, what local compensatory investment should come instead? Thinking to the future, including practical projects such as bus priority, safer walking and cycling routes, junction improvements, better pedestrian links and biodiversity improvements. So this amendment does three things. It moves the debate from Derby acting alone to acting alongside the whole East Midlands. It focuses on protecting infrastructure investment in our region rather than tying ourselves to the one specific project. And it ensures that local people have a voice in any future decision-making process. We can either make a Derby-only case or we can join a broad cross-party regional coalition and make a stronger East Midlands case. So I commend the amendment to Council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peatfield. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Khan, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve my right, thank you.
Okay, is there any other speakers on the amendment? Councillor Kerr.
In my question earlier this evening about the A38, I asked whether Derby City Council would lead on consultation with local people about what was really needed in this area. Now, this amendment doesn't go the whole way there because in point 9, it calls upon the government to undertake specific public engagement with Derby residents, businesses and stakeholders. Well, the government might have the sense to delegate that to the City Council to do on its behalf. And I will therefore support this because it's actually going in the direction that I was asking earlier on, and it picks up some of the other issues that I think need addressing, certainly in the way it's been introduced, because it is a long time since this scheme was put together and originally proposed. The world has changed and the world's priorities should also be changing.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kerr. Any other speakers? Councillor Hassel.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And thank you for the amendment. While there's a lot to read here, isn't there? But yes, I will, in good faith, enter into this. And hopefully, you know, I've been very clear with the leader about wanting cross-party cooperation with it. I will acknowledge it does water it down a little bit, the wording. I understand your sort of challenge to government being a similar party. I understand all of that. But I would strongly advise that any consultation, the wording we have sight of, because we don't want it to be a fait accompli, or, you know, it needs to ask the right questions is what I'm saying. It doesn't want to ask the questions they want the answers to. That's what I'm asking. So, in good faith, I will accept that amendment.
No, okay, I'm sticking to the Constitution. You have a right, as the mover of the amendment, to sum up, so you can take that opportunity then to do that. Okay, thank you, Councillor Hassel. Is there any other speakers on the amendment? No? So, Councillor Shiraz Khan, as seconder, you did reserve the right. Do you want to speak, or you... No, I don't want Okay then, so then Councillor Peatfield, this is where you can sum up. Thank you.
Appreciate that, and thank you, Councillor Hassel, for putting your faith in this amendment. And I invite you to work with me in that coalition, and take part and absolutely can work cross-party and in consultation with each other. Just wanted to support that, to say that this is something that we all care about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Peatfield. So if we've all had enough debate on the amendment, so all those in favour of the amendment? Okay, I want to participate in this one. Yeah. Any against? That motion is carried, so now that is now down to the substantive. So any more speakers? Councillor Kerr.
Thank you for that. The issue of the A38 and the time it's taken for effectively nothing to happen is really struggling, and the other changes that we're not getting in terms of investment in the East Midlands transport is also an issue. I'm thinking particularly the Midland Main Line electrification, which has been talked about, has been on and off and on and off. And we need to be investing in more sustainable travel as well as road schemes. The issue of where the funding's come from, there's been a suggestion nationally that the government should be issuing defence bonds to help fund defence investment. I don't think that's being discussed and considered, but that will give more flexibility as to what happens in the future. I'm very disappointed that in terms of locally, the national highways have not been consistent in their view that we need to have transport investment to enable the housing development. At one point they were making it very clear that we couldn't build more and more houses without having some improvement in our transport infrastructure, and they've taken a very back step on that one, and I think that inconsistency of position between different government departments has not been helpful for Derby. It'd be good if they could be more consistent on that. There are also some known tweaks to the existing network which could be done to help reduce delays. They have been put on hold while this whole issue of the grand scheme happens. And we know if the grand scheme happens, it's going to be several years away. But simple changes like putting in additional traffic lights on the existing roundabouts would reduce delays, including notorious areas such as Kingsway past the Kingsway Retail Park. It could be done. There is funding actually from the developers, but it's been put on hold. And I think we should be lobbying for actually having those things done now. But the biggest question of all this, as we know that campaigners in Derby have highlighted, is that the more we encourage people to travel further and faster without the delays, it means that there will be more people travelling, there will be more climate change. Even the cost of doing this development has a significant footprint. And the temperatures that we're experiencing at the moment this summer are apparently going to be worse next summer and the summer after, on average. Greenpeace put out a statement to say, enjoy this summer, future summers will be hotter. If we want to do something about that, we need to look at how we can be more sustainable in what we expect in terms of infrastructure investment and how we are delivering on it. It's a really big question. We're not yet grasping it firmly enough. We need to think about that too, as well as lobbying for solutions from 20, 30 years ago.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Any more speakers? Okay, Councillor Hassel, as the original mover of the motion, would you like to sum up? Move to the vote. Okay then, so all those in favour? Yep, and none against by the looks of it. Okay, that moves the motion. Okay, moving on to item 14, urgent finance review to improve frontline services. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colleagues, I bring this motion out of frustration, sadness, disappointment, but overall a fundamental belief that the council can do better than we're doing at the moment. I want to make clear from the start, this is no criticism of the frontline workers, the team that are out there up the trees, on the mowers, emptying the bins. It is no criticism of them. It is about how we can make their job easier and better, how we can work harder, how we can work smarter, how we can revolutionise and change the services in the way we feel necessary. Week after week after week, my inbox and the inbox of many of my colleagues are full of exactly the same issues. The grass hasn't been cut, the trees have not been maintained, the grounds and hedges have not been trimmed back, that bins have not been collected, and certainly in Oakwood Ward, that the park lights have not yet been replaced. These are our basic services, the basic functions that residents expect of this council. And residents do not feel performance at the minute is good enough. Grass over 4 foot high, I know because we measured it. That is not acceptable to most residents. Trees that school children are having to limbo under to not be poked in the face and not to have to walk in the middle of busy roads. That is not good enough. Grounds and hedges not being maintained, emails being sent out saying we can't do this, we don't know when we can do this. That is not good enough. Household waste bins not being collected. I have emails from residents saying that they've had 1 brown bin collection on the scheduled collection day this year. Emails saying no collections of the green bin on the scheduled collection day, which they're still struggling to report. And on the overtime day on Mondays, collections still are not happening. That is not good enough. And residents getting in touch because of how unsafe they feel on parks. That is not good enough. The motion is also no war on nature. The natural benefits of wild coppices, wild flowers, community orchards, woodland, green wedges, green belt, hedges, trees are all very well known. We are all aware of those. I'm delighted to have nearly all of those in my own ward. This is not a motion that calls for levelling trees or concreting over green spaces, but the best way to lose resident support for those kind of things is to fail to maintain what we already have. To fail to cut the grass, fail to maintain the trees, fail to plant wildflowers, and then fail to collect household bins. People are being pushed away from things that we ought to be trying to encourage rather than being brought along with us. For these to come alongside a maximum council tax rise, despite promises from the government that that wasn't going to happen, and to then come alongside news of a budget surplus, yet not to see the visible improvements residents expect, simply rubs salt in. I wish we were as good at spreading salt in winter as we are at rubbing it in the spring. But if you're not fussed about those kind of concerns, think of the reputational damage that we're doing to this council. I watched the Cabinet meeting a few weeks ago where the leader commented that the Exec Scrutiny Board had not praised the Cabinet enough for decisions that they've made. If you really want praise, and we can argue about whether or not that should be what we really want, but if you really want the praise, vote for this motion, make the changes, improve those services. That is one way you can do it. And I'm pretty certain, I think, that it's all councillors that are getting these emails and these messages. If not, I really don't know what you're doing here, because I don't know anyone that's not getting these complaints. I'm seeing them from Simfin, from Oakwood, from Atherstry, from Spondon, from Mickletover, from Chaddersden, from Alveston, from Chellaston, all across the city. These are coming through. It's not just 1 or 2 wards. But what I'm noticing more this year especially is residents are now emailing ward councillors, but they're emailing the Cabinet member, the council leader, the chief executive, various officers that they know. They know that the finger is not necessarily to be pointed at ward councillors. They know ward councillors do not have the ability to alter and amend the schedules that are meaning this work isn't being done. They know who they need to speak to. The Park Lights one is admittedly the slightly more unusual one in this. I mean, Councillor Noaha did provide a bit of a summary, but in context for those, they were removed from several parks across the city. As he says, our team at Oakwood have been emailing and getting in touch with him constantly, but we haven't seen the meaningful process that we hope to see nearly 18 months on from their removal. And we face another winter without those lights in place. And again, we don't believe that's good enough. So the motion asks for a proper review of the position we are now in to ensure that these services function in the way that is good enough for the residents we are here to serve. and that additional funding is looked at for these departments, whether that's through the private sector or whatever that may be. I accept the limitations of what we can request of the Cabinet, what we can ask them to do, but I do believe we can request that a review is done. And as I said earlier, far too often I and many councillors here feel like we are being kept in the dark. So we've also asked for a report to come to the Community Scrutiny Review Board to see the evidence of the changes that have been made. Those of us on the Exec Scrutiny Review, on the Exec Scrutiny Board, remember when we asked for the budget review that was done supposedly in 2023 to come before the committee. We never got to see it. We never saw what was done. I don't want to see that scenario happen again. So I ask everybody in this chamber, can this council do better than this? Can we do better than the complaints that we are all receiving? And do you want to see us do better? If you do, vote for this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pearce, you're second of the motion. Would you like to reserve your right, or would you like to speak now?
Reserve my right, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any speakers? Councillor Unawaha? Did I get it right? Yes. Yeah, get it there. That's only because I heard it from Matt's mouth first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've just dodged a pint, but I'll hold you to the earlier one. Thank you, Councillor Eyre, for this motion. You'll be glad to know that I agree with you on the sentiment of needing to see a greater sense of confidence by our residents in our service. And indeed, we have spoken on a few occasions about that. Now, as Cabinet member, my responsibility is not just to advocate for the finances to be put in our services, but also to provide a strategy behind that. And we have done that. But I agree with you that when it comes to the services that people see on their doorstep, the use of the strategy and the finances that we've provided have not really been good enough. Now, that is where, as Cabinet member, I have to come in and sit with officers and say, this is what we expect. And I've had those conversations with the Chief Executive, with our directors, with all the other teams. But I must also, Councillor Eyre, state that, as you well know, the biggest issue we've had this year is not that of money, it's not that of strategy, but it's that of staff. And throwing money at an issue of staff shortage will not automatically get more staff if people aren't taking up those roles. And that is something that we have spoken about. That is something I have spoken about. But we are also putting in strategies to ensure that we can either attract more people where possible, or, as we have done this year, get contractors to bridge the gap between those vacancies that are in the service and the services that our residents demand. But I must also state that we didn't just reach here by chance. We've come from a period of underinvestment in the service, loss of positions, and we're gradually building back from a loss of £289,000 under your administration to putting in £200,000 last year. And last year we did joke about the fact that we had none of these of pictures of people in high grass because the service was fully staffed and was working. We have not had a lot of that this year. But as you've also mentioned, Councillor, and in fact we have messages where we joked about having delivered in Oakwood the lighting, and and I'm surprised to see that this is here when we have talked about it earlier, and saying I was glad to have made this work for you. You know, so if we've had those conversations where you've acknowledged that we've actually done this, why do we have this in the motion yet again? You know, and I don't like to think, Councillor Eyre, that everything is political, but again, we're in the political arena, and sometimes we need the full council as our soapbox. But this really, if you look at what we've invested in the service, you would know that as chair of the scrutiny committee, what you could have done was to say, bring this to this committee, let us look in depth at what has been provided and how that is working, rather than this, again, using the council chamber for political soapbox. But really, as I've mentioned, we are recruiting. We've gone out to that, and where we do not have enough people, we're using contractors. But I must also sound a note of warning that, because you mentioned the underspend, but that is a one-time thing, Councillor Eyre. If we take that, a lot of money from that underspend and put it into a service, and I'll go back to your mention of council tax. What will happen next year if we do need to maintain a lot of money that we've thrown at a service where the issue wasn't so much money but staff? Will we then be forced to increase council tax yet again because you want us to just throw money at a problem? Let us go to committee. Let us bring in officers, bring in cabinet member. I'll be happy to sit with you. That is how we solve this problem, not just using this as political soapbox and asking for us to throw money when really what we should do is look at our strategies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Onuaha. That is very impressive, almost to the minute. That was Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. I believe that we, on the whole, if we have the staff and if the staff are recruited and so on in post, I think that most of what needs to be delivered could be delivered with the existing staff. But I think we need a bit more support on the management level. For example, we had real problems with the height of the grass on the central reservation through the ring road on the edge of Littleover. And it was apparently impossible to cut the grass because we hadn't got anybody in post available to be able to work out the traffic management to allow people to cut the grass. So, you know, we must do this every year, but for some reason we haven't managed to get our staff management, training, whatever it is, in place to enable someone to go and cut the grass. It was told it wasn't a matter of the lawnmower not being available, it was being able to get the traffic management right. So I think we probably do need that review. I don't know what it will bring forward, but I think we do need a review. But in part of that review, there were two other areas which I think many members are concerned about, which I would like to see included as well. And I've put them together in an amendment, which there are copies for, and I'd like to propose that. And it will cover Section 106 delivery and our local transport priorities.
Okay, thank
you.
you.
So there's an amendment, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Kerr. The clock has paused on 3 minutes 48 left. So can we have the amendment circulated, please? Councillor Kerr, could I ask you now to propose your amendment? Just to remind you, you've got 3 minutes 48 seconds left.
Yeah, you used to get 5 minutes to do your amendment as well as 5 minutes to speak for the substantive, but we changed that, went through differently about 5 years ago. I'm too long in the tooth here. But it's quite simple. On the first page, there are 2 points which I want to add to the amendment. That quarterly updates on the Section 106 spending regularly show monies that aren't being spent in a timely manner and risk being clawed back by developers. And the second point, that a number of transport projects consulted on with residents, agreed by councillors, and now funded with MCA, from MCA, are not moving forward due to staff availability. And then at the end, there'll be an additional point which says, planning for the spend of transport and other Section 106 funding is able to be progressed in a timely manner to mitigate against the impacts of development and to take forward agreed local priorities. So those would be the intentions to enable the review should be addressing the problems that we've got in those first 2 points. And hopefully everybody will think that that is a sensible way forward and support it.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Atwell, would you like to speak?
Reserve
now?
my right, thank
Reserve
you.
your right, okay. Any speakers on the amendment, please? Councillor Holmes.
Just very quickly, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. I'm not saying necessarily the first two full council notes from Councillor Kerr aren't relevant, maybe worthy of discussion and debate in the future, but I am really struggling to understand where they fit within the motion as put forward by Councillor Eyre. So I know it's been checked legally, but I'm sceptical that that has actually got anything to do with this particular motion directly.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Could I just ask for some officer advice, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Holmes. I suspect the issue here is about the heading to the original motion, which talks about an urgent finance review. And looking at it within that context, it's whether or not the amendment falls within that broader scope. I suspect because of the broadness of the heading, it does fall within scope.
Councillor Holmes, would you like to speak further on that? Or? Would you like to speak, Councillor Holmes?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do slightly wonder how it fits in with everything, but if that's the guidance that we've been given, that's the guidance that we've been given. The only thing I slightly would like to raise is, so we talked about bringing a report to the Community Scrutiny Review Board. A number of what's been added here doesn't sit under the Community Scrutiny Review Board. It would sit under, I believe, the Regen Board. I don't know what the process is for amending an amendment before we voted on an amendment, but we might want to amend that to include both scrutiny boards rather than ask the Community Scrutiny Board for a report that it can't really consider.
Councillor Kerr, would that be something you would consider?
Yeah, no problems with that.
Okay. Would that be possible, Alex?
It would be possible just to come up with the full words.
I don't know if the wording just to say the appropriate scrutiny board would be better.
Just come up with the right form of words.
Okay, can we just have a couple of minutes, please, whilst we just make sure that the wording is correct? Just a couple of minutes. Okay, I'm going to ask Alex just to recite the minor change that has been proposed to Councillor Kerr for her to ratify. Thank you.
So, Councillor Kerr, the change that Councillor Eyre has indicated he's willing to accept is that at paragraph 2 of the resolution, that it now reads that a report be made available to be brought to the September Community Scrutiny Review Board and/or the most appropriate Scrutiny Review Board, detailing the changes made and initial impact of these changes.
Yep. Yes. Okay. So we're now moving into the debate on that basis then. So any speakers? Councillor Holmes.
Come on, England. Just very quickly, I'm still confused about that, but I'll let it go. The Micklehove Ward Councillors write in the Micklehove Directory every month. General issues, updates and everything. And obviously this is sort of an area that we always have to sort of relay on because it is, as Councillor Eyre has said, you know, a very emotive issue. Something which people quite rightly feel very strongly about. Now, we know that council tax funds many things other than frontline services such as grass cutting, tree maintenance and all those things which on people's streets and community centres, community urban centres, etc. But they're very important. And we wrote in this recent article about the broken windows theory, which is a criminal concept from the early 80s into the 90s, I think it is. But it was relevant to this because if there are signs of neglect or issues within an area, this can spiral over time into more serious issues, but also can propagate a feeling that an area isn't looked after, it's been neglected. Therefore, the whole social thing flips. People start taking potentially less care in their own neighbourhood. And so we've got to be really careful as a local authority here to do the small things and the things which people expect from the council tax that they pay in their streets, in their communities, and do them well. It could be, as I say, grass cutting, it can be just general maintenance on trees, hedges, removing weeds, all the things which are really important. Not in the grand scheme of things to do with social care, etc., but they are really important because they do play a massively important part in the whole process. And I think that's what Councillor Ayres relayed very well. That staff issues or otherwise, whatever the issues are, we do need to resolve them because residents of this city in every single ward across the city deserve a good quality of service in the basics. And I think we can all agree that they're not getting that at the moment for whatever reason. And we should work as a collective here, whether through scrutiny or individually as chairs or cabinet members, to resolve those issues. I want to do that because I'm fed up, like everybody else, of having to deal with them at a ward level, trying to do what we can ourselves. But we can't do that without council support. And I think this motion sums that up, and I'll be fully supporting it and hope we can get this resolved in the short term. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Any other speakers on the amendment? I should have highlighted that earlier. So if everyone's happy, Councillor Kerr, would you like to sum up the amendment or would you like to go to the vote?
And I just make the point that frontline services can include improvements, such as those funded by Section 106 or by MCA. And I would hope that the review doesn't only look at a blanket increase in frequency. It needs to be responsive to where we are at the moment. We went on holiday for a fortnight. I don't think the grass grew at all in that 2 weeks we were away because there was no rain and it just looks parched. If that's what the grass is like, we don't need to go on cutting it. And we need to be intelligent.
Okay then, so we will now move to the vote on the amendment. So all those in favour? Any against? The amendment has carried, so now we go to the substantive. Any? Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have an amendment.
Oh, lovely. Thank you for bringing it at the beginning, though.
This will be an amendment to the amended motion.
The amendment, this, yeah.
Just while we speak to you, if that's all right, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we're just having a 30-second pause, if that's all right. Thank you. Councillor Peatfield, could I just ask you to come up here, please? Okay, Council. I'm just going to ask Alex to explain the current situation, given that we are now heading into a second amendment, something that we've probably not had for some time. Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a point of clarification, the amendment that Councillor Peatfield is proposing was written on the basis of the motion that was published with the agenda and not the motion as amended following Councillor Kerr's amendment. Following clarification with Councillor Peatfield, her intention is that on the form of amendment that has been circulated to you members, the additional paragraph that Councillor Kerr proposed as paragraph E of the substantive motion becomes paragraph D of the amendment here. And likewise, the revised wording that Councillor Eyre had consented to would be incorporated in paragraph 3.
Okay, and Councillor Peatfield has accepted that, so Councillor Peatfield.
Is that clear as mud? Can I just start by saying nobody wants a sad air. So I do hope that we get an England win this evening to cheer you up, okay? So our administration came into office with a clear mandate to improve the everyday services residents experience in their neighbourhoods. We have put additional government funding into frontline services, but after years of cuts, the level of improvement we wanted to see is not yet there. Workforce shortages, recruitment difficulties, low overtime take-up, operational pressures, warmer, wetter weather, creating longer growing seasons, they've all affected delivery. And councils across the country are facing the same challenges. But work is underway. Our Chief Executive brought in an interim Executive Director of Place, well experienced in ground maintenance, and years of problem solving across local government to tackle our structural, operational and personnel issues. City gateway roads are being cleaned, weeding has begun across the wards, food waste collections are now running smoothly and parks have been tidied up in time for key community events. Speaking of broken windows though, Councillor Holmes, in 2024 we reversed the previous administration's reductions of £300,000 and 9 posts taken out of frontline services, and we put the money and the people back into grass cutting and grounds maintenance to support additional capacity and gardener posts. This year and next, we have added a total of £2.8 million into the frontline services that you have talked about in this motion. Believe me, funding is not the issue. Despite the challenges of recruitment, we have deployed additional agency staff, contractors have been brought in to support specific work programmes, recruitment campaigns have been widened and dedicated teams are tackling problem areas. But Councillor Kerr is right, we are short of supervisors. That is why the amendment seeks to take some of the politics out of this debate. The forum to discuss operational complexities belongs in scrutiny, not in full council. Residents don't care which party claims the solution, they care whether the grass is cut, bins are emptied and services improve. But we also have to be practical about the original motion. A review within 20 working days may sound decisive, but it risks creating the appearance of action without giving officers enough time to assess performance, staffing, procurement, seasonal demand, environmental conditions, and the real financial choices available. The finance team would have to drop every single important piece of work they are doing right now in order to turn that around. Full Council approved the Council's budget in February with nearly £3 million additional investment into priority services. The time for opposition to amend their budget was in February. But they didn't, because, like us, they didn't have a crystal ball. The Council is currently producing its Q1 forecast, and this will be considered by Council Cabinet in August. It's so important that the Council continues to provide services to all of its residents and delivers against its statutory responsibilities while not destabilising the Council's finances. August will provide an opportunity for a review as to how the finances are performing against the budget that was set. Not allowing for time for this is nothing short of financial recklessness. Anyone with an understanding of large budgets will be aware that reserves and underspends are not the solution to a service improvement plan. They are not a sustainable way to fund recurring pressures. They are one-offs and they can't be baked into a budget. They are only a sticking plaster. This amendment is not a weaker alternative. It is the practical route to information, accountability and delivery plan needed to improve services honestly, affordably and in a way that can be implemented. The amendment and the subsequent scrutiny will help us all to see that the challenges are not a financial one. They are challenges in personnel. Instead of assuming a quick reserves exercise will solve complex operational issues, the amendment asks for a proper report to the September meeting of the Communities, Public Protection and Housing Scrutiny Review Board. So hopefully that would give Councillor Eyre something to smile about. So yes, let us acknowledge services have struggled and residents expect better, but let us also recognise the investment already made, the work underway and the need to bring the full picture back through scrutiny where performance, pressures, costs, options and delivery plans can be properly examined. We will review the investment levels required to deliver the services we all deserve. And that budget process begins in September. To do it properly is a 6-month complex process, not a 20-day political sticking plaster. If there's one thing we should all unite around, it's delivering better services for Derby residents. So I commend this amendment to Council.
Well done, Councillor Peatfield. Exactly 5 minutes. I have yet to take note as seconder of your amendment. Councillor Repton. Thank you. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right? Okay. Any speakers on the amendment? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the Leader of the Council wants to go to such a massive effort to put a smile on my face, she could empty my residents' bins, cut my residents' grass and trim the trees in our ward. Maybe that would go a bit more of a stretch than this, quite frankly, pathetic attempt at an amendment. What's really sad about this is, first of all, to see a second attempt to, well, delete almost the entirety, and in this case, pretty much the entirety of a motion before the council. That just smacks of a ridiculous thing to be looking to do. But what's really a shame about this is if you really wanted to bring this element of the amendment, you could have tagged it on to the motion itself. You could have said that as well as bringing the report on changes that need to be made, because this almost smacks as a, we'll not make any changes, but we'll let you review why it's not working. We can do that anyway. The board's done that. If you bother to look at the work programme for our committee, we have tree maintenance on there. We bring grass cutting on there. We bring household waste collections on there. The committee does its job. What's not being done, I didn't interrupt you, what's not being done is the actual delivery of the services in the way that residents expect. And I repeat again, what we're saying in this is, yeah, things are not good enough. There's almost an acceptance that things are not good enough, but let's just look at why they're not. There's no impetus I can see in here for really making the changes that residents expect of us. As a result, our group cannot support this amendment. We stand by our original motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Is there any more speakers on the amendment? Councillor Hardill-Dinser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think common sense needs to prevail. Councillor Eyre talked about not good enough. The council is not good enough. The council is not delivering. Then he cites a timetable which Councillor Peterfield has just identified is too short or too narrow, and it's actually suggesting a review of the budget, which is annually set to happen 3 or 4 months after the budget was set. The investment put in by this administration, £14 million additional in many different areas, and in this area, as Councillor Peterfield said, large amounts of money were put in. We have reinstated the cuts of 280, 300,000 that, Councillor Eyre, you were part of a council cabinet that passed and agreed them. That led to challenges for our frontline officers, particularly in grounds maintenance, where 9 posts were taken down. The ask in this the original recommendation and which is why we should not support it, all of us, because it's not logical in terms of financial process and procedure, in terms of having a budget change requested of the Cabinet 3 or 4 months after a budget has been set with full debate. I need to sort of just comment on a number of things. On the park lighting, Councillor Onoa quite clearly said funding has been made available, it will be delivered, and if the scrutiny board has not had the full sight of it, I'm sure Councillor Onoa will be quite happy to go and give an update on what the situation is. So that is negated in terms of a request, in terms of this fundamental 20-day review. The idea that the residents' household waste collection on the scheduled collection day for black, blue, brown and green bins should be delivered, I would say is an nigh impossible task, because he should know when they were in administration, with the best will in the world, with the best resources, with 150,000 deliveries to be done, collections to be done, 1 or 2% failure rates do happen. Now, I accept sometimes it can be more in one area than required, and we need to look at operationally how we can ask officers to challenge that and sort of correct that. But the reality of saying that bins will be collected, which is all our aspiration, whoever's in administration, will be collected when and at the timely manner, that is the aspiration. But the reality is, resources or no resources, the 1 or 2% failure in collection has happened because of a number of things, which we all know, and you know it as a cabinet when you were in administration, because it happened the same way then. In terms of the idea of the grant scheduling and sort of the 8 weeks to 6 weeks, we all agree with that. Again, it's easily sensible to go to a scrutiny board, whichever relevant scrutiny board it is, based on the amendment earlier made by Councillor Kerr, or more than one scrutiny board, and report there in terms of what is happening, what is not happening, and receive feedback, constructive policy and operational feedback from scrutiny board members in order to see how we can improve our services. Work together for the collective improvement of services for our citizens. That's what I would suggest. That's why I would say, although the aspirations are quite right, Councillor Eyre, and you as the second Councillor Pearce, but the reality of what is being expected is unrealistic. Councillor Peatfield shared that in her amendment conversations. I reinforced that, and I put a plea to members in this chamber to consider that the due process should be followed. We should look at these issues, but there is a way of doing this, and the original amendment does not do that. The amendment that Councillor Peter has put will cover all the areas that are of our concern, will give information which is relevant, and give progress at the same time. Please support the amendment, because it's sensible, logical, and it follows our budgetary process, decision-making actions as we normally take. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dins. Another commendable 5-minute display there. I don't know how you do it. Every motion that we can, you all seem to time it to 5 minutes. So, Councillor Wright, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The amended motion talks about urgent action within 20 days and gives a number of actions to take place with those 20 days. It's all about recognising residents' concerns here and now about the services that are being provided. That was accepted by the Cabinet lead. He said the performance isn't good enough. He recognised the concerns of all residents. We've already heard from Councillor Eyre that we have regular performance monitoring, regular financial monitoring. We don't need to go all through that again. What we need is urgent action. So I would take us to the CP48, amendments to motions. This amendment, to me, actually frustrates the objective of the motion, which is looking for urgent action here and now, not to be put off till September until budget time, not to be put off to a future meeting, but actually to respond to residents' actions here and now. The amended motion that's been put forward, I think, frustrates all those actions, and I would ask it to be put down in relation to being contrary to the Constitution.
Thank you, Councillor Reich. If you could just give me a pause for 30 seconds. Thank you very much, Councillor Wright. After reviewing what you've just said, the amendment was put forward by Councillor Peatfield and obviously was seconded. There was plenty of opportunity to object to that position then, but because we've already had the motion tabled, seconded and proposed, it is now here to be debated, so unfortunately that can't be accepted. But the time to do that would have been at the beginning of the amendment, when the amendment was put forward, before it got moved. Thank you. So, any more speakers on this amendment? Councillor Cuss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to say that I'm in favour of the original motion, but the amendment, I do agree with Councillor Wright. We need urgent action now, and I can't support this amendment as it seems like it's pushing the issue or kicking the issue into the very long grass. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cuss. Any more speakers? Councillor Kerr.
I think we've actually conflated two things here. One is the urgency of local residents seeing that something is changing, and the second thing is addressing the long-term need to review and make sure that we've got the capacity. And sadly, I don't think that that Councillor Peatfield's amendment does sufficient to recognise the urgency of that first point, which is what has driven the original motion. It deals with the second point, which again is really quite sad because it reflects that our scrutiny processes are not being as alert and connected with Cabinet as would be helpful. You know, the idea of having these sorts of information going to Cabinet, going to the review board, should be fairly standard. You know, I think that these are issues that are there and are of concern, and if they're not being reviewed on a more timely and regular basis, then I think they should be, and that is partly up to the scrutiny chairs to identify that that's an issue and they need that on the agenda. But it's also up to Cabinet members to be mindful that they are receiving concerns from the public, and therefore that other councillors will be receiving those concerns, and they should be spontaneous and proactive in putting forward those things and making sure that scrutiny is aware of what's going on. So I don't know if there's learning here that can go into the way in which we're dealing with our scrutiny protocols and the like. But I think if there is, then maybe officers can take that forward and see that we can be more efficient in future. But in terms of this motion, I think it is the urgency of the key ask that is the important thing, and I don't think that is addressed by the Labour amendment.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Kerr. Any more speakers on this amendment? Okay then, so we're now moving to the vote on the amendment from Councillor Peatfield. All those in favour? And all those against? The amendment has lost. So we move to the substantive, which is the amendment from Councillor Kerr. Okay, so I'll get there eventually. Any speakers on the substantive? Councillor Peatfield, I believe, is right. Yep, to speak again. Thank you.
Thank you. It's disappointing that that amendment was lost, because I now will need to lay out some of the obstacles in the way of your substantive motion. We are intending to get back to 6-week grass cutting maximum, but you simply can't achieve it by passing a motion. It requires staff, equipment, route planning, supervision, safe working arrangements and weather conditions that allow the work to be done properly. This work is already underway and costs are being assessed. Private sector support, it does help, and agencies and contractors are already being used, but it's not an instant switch. It still needs procurement, contract management, value for money checks, quality assurance and confidence that capacity is actually available. Tree maintenance has to follow the Council's tree management policy and consider risk, safety, environmental impact, seasonal restrictions and specialist capacity. We're already out to recruitment in this department, but we should not give residents the impression that every request can be actioned immediately. On waste, residents rightly expect bins to be collected on the scheduled day, but miscollections can result from many issues and access problems, staffing pressures and operational disruption. The answer is not simply to instruct perfection, but to understand and reduce the causes of failure. No council can deliver 100% certainty on bin collection. The amendment would have covered actions already underway, including recruitment, agency support, contractor support, service reviews, budget investment, and options being considered for the 27-28 budget. But that's not happening now. So ultimately, the motion we're now debating is ultimately a matter for Executive Cabinet. We have already laid out everything that we're already doing. We are offering our assurances that we are moving as fast as we can, and many, many proactive things are being undertaken. And I've already laid out why officers practically probably can't meet the timescales of this motion. 20 days the demands it would place on the finance and the frontline teams. Much of that work, although it's already in motion, it needs all of the wisdom and the experience and the input of all of the officers in those different departments to be able to inform that budget review. But, of course, you know this. You've been in control of the council and you know that it's a lot more complex than you're making out. You need to have your political moment, and that's fine. You are setting out your stall for your election pledges, no doubt. So you do you, we'll do us, and we'll continue with the hard work of responsible leadership, good governance, strategic planning, building back cuts to reserves, funding and services over 15 years of austerity, and we will continue to do our best for the residents of Derby.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peatfield. I think this has been a well-debated motion. I'm minded that Councillor Pearce, you did reserve your right to vote. Would you like to speak?
I didn't reserve my right to vote, Mr Mayor, but I would like to say a few words, if that's okay.
Okay, Councillor Pearce.
I wish you'd gone to VAR, to be quite honest, on this one. It was, there's a lot of excuses coming across from the middle lot, as per usual, and they seem to forget that they were in opposition 4 or 5 years ago as well, and they do exactly the same. So I think claptrap is the thing I'm looking for. This is a motion that affects all of us. All of us. Excuse me?
Mayor, that is rude. Calling what we're saying claptrap. Could
Oh,
you
I
ask
take that back. I do apologise. I take that back. I take that back. I take that back. Okay. Right. Okay. Shenanigans? That's proper word, yeah. This is a motion that affects all of us. I was very surprised when Councillor Eyre stood up and mentioned that councillors in Timfin, Chellaston, Chaddesden, Oakwood, Spondon, all receive all these emails. And Councillor Dinser looked round and gave him a right dirty look, as though to say, I didn't receive these emails. Surely you do. This affects all of the councillors in this city. The grass is long, or was long, in all parts of the city. It's cut now, after a lot of persuasion, after a lot of Derbyshire Live, Derby Telegraph articles, cemetery at Nottingham Road, for an example. Councillor Hassel went round on a Sunday morning before Father's Day. It was in a disgusting state. It was absolutely disgusting. There was elderly residents having to take their own strimmers to cut a path to their loved ones' graves. We don't want that in this city. We do not want it at all. I agree totally with Councillor Holmes as well. The broken glass syndrome, broken window syndrome. Everywhere in this city looked untidy. Everywhere. It was a mess. When the grass was cut, it still looked a mess in places. I had a meeting with Owen Swift and Lee Wheatley a couple of weeks ago. We walked around Chaddesden. We had a very good talk, very good chat, pointed out a few areas. They agreed with me, which was great. I've spoken to Councillor Noah as well, plenty of times about these things, and in his response as well, he agrees on this. It's a lack of professionalism at times that's letting us down. The grass gets cut, people forget about it. When that grass is there, that's what the residents see. And this motion is for every one of us. Those residents who are complaining about the grass, they voted you into where you are sitting now. And me, and you, and you. Let's not let them down, please. Let's all accept this motion. Let's all vote for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Ayres, the original mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be as brief as I can. 3 quarters into your term in governing this council, you're still pointing fingers at 2023, and after having done a budget review. It's a shame we've had to motion you to get the act together on this one, but hopefully it is going to lead to some action. Councillor Noir, you mentioned about the lights, and we have had several very positive conversations about that. You even came to Oakwood to come and see the park. In November, where are our lights? We're facing another winter without them now, and a few jovial emails between us. It's always good to chat, but those emails have not got us our lights. Where are they? We don't want another winter without them. So we've lost a lot of faith in that, and so we felt we had to include this in the motion. And a final point, on the amendment that did fall before, on Councillor Peatfield's amendment, if you still want to bring that report to scrutiny, I'll happily add that to the agenda for the September meeting. Given you all voted for it to be part of that meeting, I will happily put that onto the agenda for that meeting. I'm happy to scrutinise, but I'm not happy to do the scrutiny in place of the urgent action that's required. So I hope that will put a smile on some faces that you will get the motion element, your amendment through, that I will allow that to come and put that onto the agenda for that meeting. But it can't replace the urgent action that's required. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ayres. So now it is time to move to the vote. So all those in favour of the motion? And all those against? The motion has carried. Finally, moving on to the item 9 as the end of the meeting. So we will now return to the deferred item from earlier, which is the minute extract from the Council Cabinet in relation to the development of the local plan for Derby. As councillors will be aware, a cross-party working group has been developing a draft local plan since December 2021. The Cabinet are recommending that the Council begin a Regulation 19 consultation on the draft local plan before seeking further approval by the Council and submission to the Planning Inspector later this year. The minute extract will be determined under the normal rules of debate. As the local plan forms part of the policy framework, the Council may either adopt, amend, refer back or substitute its own proposals in place of those recommended by the Cabinet. Councillor Khan, as Cabinet Member, can I ask you to move the minute, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Cabinet resolution recommends the draft local plan is approved for its next stage, which is the Regulation 19 publication for 6 weeks beginning in July. The Regulation 19 representation period is the last stage of public engagement before submitting the draft plan to the Inspectorate for examination. Unlike a normal consultation, this is a formal process that requires comments only on the soundness and legal compliance of the plan. This specific and technical consultation on the submission plan is essential so that a sound plan can be submitted by the government deadline of December 26. Failure to achieve this means we would not have a plan for several more years. As you know, the new local plan will set the strategic planning framework for Derby between 23 to 2043, importantly coordinating our growth of a minimum of 12,500 new homes in Derby. At the December Cabinet, we endorsed the Regulation 18 plan. This took place from January to March and generated over 500 responses. Following consideration and involvement of councillors and the cross-party working group, the plan has been revised and is now presented as a Regulation 19 publication local plan. The cross-party working group consisted of Hardiel Dinser, Sue Bonser, Lucy Kerr, Tim Prosser, and Matt Holmes. So it was indeed cross-party, and I thank them for their input. Key themes of those responses include opposition to the proposed gypsy and traveller site at Wilmorton. The allocation has been retained as required for plan soundness, as a site needs to be allocated, and this considered the most suitable. You may recall, most of you, that we considered over 80 sites to meet the selection criteria. On the back of this work, the cross-party working group were instrumental in proposing this site. Again, I stress that this was a cross-party decision agreed by the aforementioned Hardiel Dinser, Sue Bonser, Lucy Kerr, Tim Prosser, and Matt Holmes. So I thank them again for deliberating and their recommendations. There was significant support for protecting our green wedges and green belt, strong opposition to Stony Lane and Morwell Lane housing sites on traffic and green wedge stroke belt concerns, despite Stony Lane being designated as a grey belt and reaffirmed with 40% affordable housing. Both are retained. Public support for increased city centre residential density for brownfield derelict sites to be prioritised before Greenbelt. Derby Canal restoration reference in the Green Network vision. Bainbridge Drive is removed as a housing site following statutory public objections. HIMO guidance becomes policy and is strengthened to include increase to existing HIMO property and controls for co-living schemes, securing city centre public realm improvements in lieu of on-site amenity space, support for expansion of Rolls-Royce at both Sinfin and Rangeway sites, the important role green infrastructure network plays on improving health and well-being is strengthened. Mr. Mayor, what we cannot do is to delay the critical stage of plan making. Missing the July Regulation 19 consultation would in turn result in missing the government's deadline. No plan means no control, and planning by appeal, which no one wants to see, where we will lose that protection of our green wedges and green belt to uncoordinated housing growth. Mr. Mayor, let me make it perfectly clear. Any substantial changes to this Regulation 19 paper would mean going back to Regulation 18 and starting the whole process again, bearing in mind that we started looking at the new local plan in 2022 under your administration. If we miss the December deadline, there are potentially serious consequences in how development is carried out in the city. We could have developers submitting applications on sites we don't want development on, And if our planning committee refuses the application, they could go to appeal and win. The inspector may say that we don't have a local plan, so therefore we don't have designated areas, which means applications are welcome anywhere in our city. As members of the planning committee will know, we lost an appeal at Royal Hill Road on similar grounds. In the absence of a local plan, it becomes a free-for-all. No local plan means we won't see the benefits of Article 4, which we all wanted to bring in to stop the proliferation of HMOs in most of our wards. We won't be able to take enforcement action to the level we could do with the local plan. Mr. Mayor, this is not a topic on which we should play politics. This is not a time for political speeches. That time has passed. What we need to do now is to approve the Regulation 19 and let's deliver on the sites we want, rather than developers making applications everywhere and going to appeal upon the planning committee's refusal because the inspectors will say, well, you should have had a local plan. If we don't submit this on time, the government could impose their own version of a local plan upon us. And I'm sure nobody in this chamber wants to see any kind of imposition on local government from central government. Accordingly, I commend this important step on our local plan journey, and as previously, must thank the invaluable contribution that the cross-party working group has provided since inception, and of course, officers, both for their hard work in turning our vision into a plan that we can be proud of and in such a short time scale. Mr. Mayor, the importance of this can't really be underestimated. We can play politics, ask for changes, etc. But I ask all of you here, do you want your own local plan so that we can control the development in our city? Or would you rather have a free-for-all, developers put in an application, we can't challenge them because the inspector will say, well, why don't you have a local plan? Or we could go completely different and say, well, we're not going to submit a plan because we can't agree on one, and let central government impose one upon us. The choice is yours. If you want to play politics with the future of our city, the future of our residents, then I can't stop you doing that. But what I can tell you are the pitfall consequences of what you're playing with here. And it's not a Labour policy, it's not a Labour group recommendation. This is a local plan that's been going on since 2022 from your administration. So if you want to make changes to it now, then you've had 4 years to do so. Why do it now when the timetable is on such a limited scale that you could potentially affect the future of housing development in this city? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Dinser, would you like to speak now or reserve your right? Okay then, so open it up to the floor. Any speakers on minute? Thank you, Councillor Cuss.
Thank you. I would like to submit an amendment.
Thank you. If that can be circulated, please. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Cuss.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just on some of them points from the Cabinet member, these tweets aren't political. They're supposed to improve the local plan. And when you talk about the deadline, I believe we still can meet the deadline, even if it means calling an EGM later in the year to bring this plan back to the council, so then we can submit it in December. If there's a will, I'm sure there's a way. And I think if we go along with the local plan as it is, and we're here just to rubber stamp it, we need a plan which works for Derby. So this is why I brought in the amendment. So this amendment strengthens the new HMO's policy to benefit residents and communities in our city. The amendment is broken up into 4 parts. The first part of the amendment is to seek strengthening parking provision for new HMOs. I have attended many planning committee meetings where parking assessments has relied on a 20-year-old report, and since then patterns of car ownership, travel and home deliveries have changed greatly. The current plan sets a clear number for parking requirements for HMOs with 7, but smaller HMOs doesn't require any parking spaces. And what we had in the past before Article 4 was if you had a 7-bed or more, that's when you need planning permission. So what you see across the city is a lot of 5- and 6-bedroom HMOs pop up. So I don't want to have the same problem but with parking. So this is why the first part is to change it to say 5 to 7. So any HMOs coming to planning would need them parking requirements. The second part is to strengthen HMO restrictions in Article 4 areas, helping to protect the character of these areas and the communities within them. Other councils have gone down this route with similar wording, including Nottingham City Council. So it's not something new, it's something what other councils have adopted. And the third point is to remove the word licence, so that all HMOs, whether licensed or not, are included when assessing the concentration of an area. And the fourth part is not just relying on a radius test, but a street test as well. A radius alone can include properties on neighbouring streets that may not experience the same direct effects. A street test would better reflect the impact on immediate road, particularly in relation to parking, traffic and congestion. This additional approach is being used in other councils such as York, Oxford and Hillingdon. So again, it's where other councils have implemented this to have better control on Article 4. And finally, this amendment would strengthen the HMO policy and provide a greater protection for residents and communities, as the plan will guide developers into Derby until 2043. These safeguards should be built into it from the outset. So yeah, that's the amendment, and I hope everyone can support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cuss. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Prosser, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Just briefly, one of the main reasons for this was I was extremely disappointed to see that the HMO guidance was not included in the local plan as is written at the moment. So adding the word licensed really did weaken our HMO restrictions. And it was also equally disappointing at the recent planning meeting to see the Labour councillors ignore the HMO guidance and vote through a HMO against our own rules. So this is really important to strengthen that and ensure that the HMO crisis that we do have in Elveston South, where a single room in a HMO can now cost in excess of £720, which is an absolute destruction of the local economy and housing stock in the area, is actually held at bay. That's why we're doing this. It's because the residents in our area are really suffering with the prices currently being charged for HMOs in the area.
Thank you very much, Councillor Prosser. Councillor Chambers.
Sorry. Yeah, just a point. I'm a little confused. We've had a cross-working member party, for how many years now, where you've been able to challenge, amend again, scrutinise, put things in, take things out. Everyone kind of agrees on it. We come to the chamber and then we disagree on it. We have the same thing with the Constitution. Why do we waste everybody's time for years and years and years? Hours and hours and hours. Why have you not brought it before now? Because it's political. It's ridiculous. We may as well not have cross-party working groups.
Thank you. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just said about 10 minutes ago, let's not make this political. Now, bearing in mind, Councillor Prosser has been on the cross-working...
Sorry, Councillor, please, I ask for a bit of decorum in here. Please let Shiraz Khan, Councillor Khan speak.
Oh, it's all right. They're not interested in what's going on here. They just want to, vote it through. But let me just say, Councillor Prosser has been on that cross-party working...
And what point of personal explanation is that, Councillor Prosser?
I have been on the group, but this is being brought because my views have been ignored on that group.
Okay, thank you.
Look, let me finish. So Councillor Prosser has been on that committee, cross-working party, for what, a year, 18 months or whatever. Now, public consultation was done from January to March. He never come out with these points then. Why now? This is for soundness, not for asking for more views. You had 3-4 months to say something, but you didn't. Some of the stuff that you're asking here is probably not even possible, right? And as regards your assertion about the planning, well, I know that as a Reform councillor, you probably wouldn't let the truth get in the way of a good story, but there was sound reasons. There were sound reasons.
Right.
Why?
Right, please, gentlemen, please. This is not a time to descend it into a farce. This is a very serious debate. Can I keep this cordial, please, and keep the language very, very calm, right? I know it's an emotive subject, but I can't afford for something that's so significant for this city to descend into farce. So please, please, have some decorum, have some respect for each other, and debate it properly.
Mr. Mayor, I've been in the chamber, new, old, etc., for 22 years. I don't make accusations lightly. But what you just said about the Labour group councillors on the planning committee, they went with the officer's advice that there was nothing for them to refuse that application on. And he's saying that we went, or those councillors went against Article 4 direction. That's not the truth. And he knows that. So that's why I said that he's making a story instead of telling the truth, right? So, I don't mean to offend nobody, but what I'm saying is this. Why did he not say anything before? From January to March, the consultation took place. After that, he still met the cross-party. There was nothing on there. Why wait until it's just for the soundness and the legality of this Regulation 19? Why didn't he comment on Regulation 18? So again, this comes down to the fact that it's purely motivated by politics and it's not interested in what's good for the city.
So Councillor Kerr next, then Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you. The second point in the Cabinet resolves says to delegate authority to the Head of Planning following a consultation with the Cabinet Member for Housing, Strategic Planning and Regulatory Services to make minor changes to the document for purposes of presentation, error correction and clarity. I suspect that single word licensed could actually be amended as part of those minor changes, which would be one of the points that's been raised. But as a member of Planning Committee, I've seen again and again things going through which I do not want to support, and in some cases I have not supported, because we cannot do anything about it, because we do not have a local plan. We desperately need to have a local plan to be able to get some control back into what happens in this city. This is what's on our plate at the moment. The consultation on this stage of it will go through to September. The officers then need to review all the responses to that. There's some additional work that needs to be done. It takes time. If we don't move this forward now, I think there's a real risk that we don't get it submitted by the end of the year. And then the whole process apparently changes and we're back to square one. And we may not have a local plan until we become a whole new local authority. And if we, as the new local authority, whoever is elected to that new local authority in 2027 to take action in 2028, one of the first things I would like them to be doing is looking at the local plan for the whole wider area. We can learn then from the good things and the bad things in this local plan as to what needs to go forward. If we don't ever implement this local plan, we won't have that learning to take forward in just 2 years' time. I really ask people to support this at this point. We don't want to cause any additional delay. I think there is a tweak there that might be acceptable. Otherwise, we need to learn from this. It isn't the end of HMOs, and if they're charging that much for a single room in an HMO, there's going to continue to be pressure for them for a significant length of time. It's not going to be the end of the story.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. You made a reference around a licence, and I would like to bring in Olu just to do some explanation on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important that I say what comes next. I hear everything which Councillor Kerr said there. I disagree on one fundamental point, and it's important that members understand the point because it's critical to where this debate goes next. You referenced the potential for the proposed amendment to be dealt with as a minor amendment. It's not a minor amendment. And I think I need to explain why that is. We are here at Regulation 19 stage to effectively agree that post-consultation, the officers can submit their draft local plan to the Secretary of State. Regulation 19 is about the lawfulness of the proposal in its current form. The reason why the amendments are not minor is because they touch on the design and content of the draft. That was Regulation 18. The net effect of that is if the amendment were to go through, and I can't sit here and tell you it's, that's not a possible outcome, if that were to go through, we're back to December 2025 and having to go back out to consult, because planning as a regulatory process is evidence-led. If that proposal were to go through, there's no evidence currently that supports it, and therefore there's a fundamental flaw in the draft plan. And for that reason, therefore, I think members need to understand that that proposal, if it goes through, will mean that we are back to having to go out to Regulation 18 consultation. As some of the speakers have already said, were that to happen, and you have to factor in the 6-week consultation period, you will be getting a paper back to full council the following day. Its product is going to have to be pulled together, collated, analysed, put into a report, find a date for another full council to then come back to deal with Regulation 19. You will miss the December 2026 deadline. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Olu. Councillor Keith.
Mr. Mayor, just pause for 1 moment. Paul's offered to come in. Yeah. His belief is that your advice is entirely correct, but he does believe that that one change, i.e. deletion of the word licence, could be made under the delegation that Paul says he's happy to. Okay.
Okay, Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you. Look, I don't think that this is necessarily political, and there are some things in here that we wouldn't necessarily disagree with, and we could have had a good conversation about it a couple of years ago. But for Councillor Prosser to say that he's disappointed not to see something like this in here, when he was on the cross-party panel, it smacks of missing the homework deadline and asking for an extension. You know, Paul Clark presented the consultation to us, the draft local plan to us, And the opportunity to make these changes was at Regulation 18. And all of those milestones have been missed by the Reform Party, and you come along at not even the 11th hour, this is the 13th hour. It is too late for this, even if you had brought this earlier and we might have found some agreement over it. And that's the disappointing bit on this. Because if we miss that deadline, the consequences are too huge. As Councillor Kerr has pointed some of them out, you know, we risk our green wedge being built on, and we will not be able to object to it. If we try and stop it through planning, there will be appeals, and because we don't have a local plan, we'll have Royal Hill Road every single time. There'll be no strength behind our Article 4 regulation because the policy in the local plan isn't there to back it up. So all of the councillors that complain and complain and complain about too many HMOs in their area won't have the policy behind it to strengthen our argument. Risks to some of the leafier border areas of our city, like Spondon, will be substantial. You know, Mick Clover can attest to what it's like when the housing expands beyond your boundary. Locker Road would be at risk because the developers would just be able to say, great, it's free for all now. They haven't got a local plan. And LGR, above anything else, if we walk into LGR without an updated local plan, it's taken 4 years for us to get here. So another 4 years to talk to the entire new authority and consider the entirety of that, some of which will have updated local plans and some won't. If we all walk into LGR with no updated local plan, we're walking into just a free-for-all of building whatever they like, wherever they like, in Derby, because we said they could. So please, please, even though some of this may make sense, we can't afford to delay now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dinser.
Yeah. Just support everything that's been said by Councillor Kerr and Councillor Peatfield. I mean, as a member of the cross-party working group, hours and hours and hours have been spent on discussion, and the officers have been very patient in making sure all the detail is made available to us. And the discussions have been long and reasonable, and everybody's points have been taken on board before we moved on. And when Councillor Prosser said that he has raised it, I had to check. I couldn't remember it being raised in the working group. If it had been, I'm sure we'd have discussed it and come to a very reasonable conclusion, as we have with most things, as Councillor Khan mentioned, the Gypsy and Traveller side. That was not pushing by some and somebody said, no, I don't agree with it. It was consensus, worked through sensibly by all members. And the officers have done a great job. And to hear that any amendment to this local plan before it moves on to Regulation 19 will mean that we'll go back to February 2025 and start all that work again with all the hours and time spent of officers and members who have been dedicating their time to this. Does not really make sense. We need to have the HMO policy in place. We need to have a plan, a local plan, which protects our green wedges and our green spaces, because without that, we don't have anything to defend. It will be a free-for-all. So let's be sensible. I mean, some of these things can be looked at going ahead. If, you know, it doesn't stop that. We just need to progress Regulation 19 and not regress to February 2025. It just doesn't make any sense at this late stage. Let's go through the process. This is needed to be done so that we can carry on the work. And the work has not finished. There is more work to be done. It's not the end of the process. It's about, I think that's just about halfway through. Maybe a little bit more than halfway through. But there's still a lot more work to be done. Let's progress this in the manner it needs to be done. We've had the input. We've had a lot of time spent on it. Last-minute changes will have a negative impact for us, for the people of Derby. Let's not risk it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take one final speaker before we move to the vote. This will be our 6th speaker on the amendment, so Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to everybody. I actually believe the best of all of us. I believe that each and every one of us stood for election back in, many of you, many years before me when you first stood for election. But we did it because we wanted to do the best for our constituents, because we wanted to serve those people who have elected us and put us here and given us huge positions of responsibility. And our biggest privilege and responsibility is to be able to vote. Now, I absolutely believe, Councillor Cuss, that your intentions are really good. But I equally believe that if we vote for this amendment, we're actually probably going to destroy what a lot of us absolutely have as our heart's desire. And our heart's desire is to do what's best for the city as a whole and for our wards in particular. I've been to planning committee. I have argued, as some of you can well attest, against HIMOs, and our ward is one of the wards that suffers terribly with HIMOs. I can't bear to think that we would tonight destroy the opportunity to help to reduce the impact of HIMOs in this city and take away the small increase in teeth that our planning committee will have as a result of our local plan. Please, whatever your personal, political or otherwise views are, recognise that actually we're all going to do a huge lot of harm to the city as a whole and some of our wards in particular if we destroy. And that's what we will be doing. We will be destroying our option for a local plan that will be a blessing and a gift and a positive impact at restoring the beauty of the city that we're all a part of. Please do what's right for your residents and this city tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby. I will now move to the vote on the amendment. So all those in favour of the amendment? No, there is no...
Sorry.
I'm afraid to say I've only just learned that out from earlier because I accidentally gave a right to reply in the first motion.
I would just like to make a point using CP 47
No.
F.
No, I'm sorry. That's unfortunately that's not correct.
A right to reply.
No, not. So a point of explanation. So what is your point of explanation, Councillor Cross?
I was asked why I brought this to council now. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I stand up. I've been asked why I brought it to this council now, and I would like to say that I did take part in the consultation. I did submit all these points earlier in this year. And the reason why I brought it to the council is because I don't like being ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so can I now move to the vote on the amendment, please? All those in favour? All those against? Got the numbers? Lost. The amendment is lost. Now we return to the substantive of the original minute extract. Who's next to speak? Councillor Prosser.
I was going to bring another amendment. I do see that there isn't the appetite here for the changes that we need to make to this document. It has been 4 years in the making, and it's been 4 years of being ignored in meetings. We have put our objections in against things that are in this plan. The Cabinet's preferred traveller's site was on Colwell Drive and Woodchester Drive, which was a pure political move that was not even practical. The Wilmorton site was then selected as a preference. However, that was selected under duress, as any further options were not on the table. 80 sites, they said, were investigated. However, that is not what was brought to the local plan advisory group. We probably had 10, and most of those were not suitable at all. So we were played, manipulated, and there was an illusion that we had a choice in the local plan that wasn't real. the local plan was dictated to us on every level. And this licensed HMO rule that we just spoke about is an example where the HMO guidance that we have in our current Article 4 declaration has been weakened, and we will pay a price for that. Also in the local plan, I wanted to remove policies that built on public parks. The local plan defines 2 public parks to be built on, which are Shaftesbury Park and the Wilmorton Park. It also proposes that we build on an area that was defined as public open space and other important sites. Oh, and a school playing field. To me, building in a local plan or putting policy in place that allows people to build on public parks, public open space and school playing fields is a big, big mistake. And that is why I will not support the plan. Now, obviously, there will not be the appetite tonight to push that through. However, we will pay a heavy price for removing the important amenity in these areas, which are often built up terraced houses, well established, with no room for further public space, no room for green areas, no room for improving the environment. And we are cramming in more and more houses in areas that we will pay a heavy price for, both mentally and for the residents of this city. So I'm not happy with this local plan. I'm not happy that I've had 4 years of going to meetings where I've been ignored and not able to make a difference, told and dictated to by the planning team. So that's my opinion, and I will be voting against the plan.
Thank you, Councillor Prosser. Councillor Onawaha?
Oh, you keep dodging the point, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, this is, I mean, we can have a long list of ridiculous things that have either happened or been said in this chamber, but, this probably takes the cake. And as an elected councillor, I would not want to see that a councillor was either being bullied or being made to make decisions under duress and then sit back and think, well, that's good enough. So I would ask, first of all, if Councillor Prosser has any, he does need to substantiate that claim that either officers or his fellow councillors are bullying him and making him make claims on that duress, because that tells badly on all of us here, especially if these incidents were...
Councillor Onawaha, can I come in on that? I didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe I heard the words from Councillor Prosser to say he was bullied into it.
Well, when he's...
And I don't think that's a statement you should say.
All right. But when he says he's being made to make a decision under duress, okay, so let me stick to duress. Because if these decisions were made in a cross-party group, then that means every councillor of whatever political colour sat there and watched a fellow councillor being made to take a decision that he profoundly agreed with and against his will. That brings his councillor under disrepute, and he should either back up that claim or apologise, because that is wrong. That is one. But two, we've seen the psychodrama play out between Councillor Prosser and his leader in the news, where they have been the ones to propose a travel site, somehow forgot or didn't tell their group that one of them had put forward a travel site for the local plan and was being told of publicly. We don't need to be part of their psychodrama. And we don't also need for them to then try and drag us down. Now, again, it doesn't matter what party you belong to. We've seen, even right now, we have over 40 travelers on 2 sites in 2 different wards. We don't have a local plan. We don't have anywhere to safely direct them to. These are the issues we're dealing with. Every time there's a planning committee here, we come, councillors come and speak on behalf of the residents who are tired of seeing yet another HMO, licensed and unlicensed, come up. And the response we always get is twofold. One, we have no proof of that, and 2, you have no council plan. We are giving away our power, our authority to developers who will do as they please, because they know that without the reason, without a cogent reason to refuse an application, we will lose on appeal. And that is what we face every single time. But to then try and bring up this gimmick, it's really uncalled for. But again, I take it personally because what Councillor Prosser is saying is that somehow we're all complicit in forcing an elected councillor to make a decision that will affect thousands of residents. He should either back that up or apologize or at least be made to answer to the Standards Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anawaha. Any other speakers? Okay then, so we move to the vote on... Oh, yeah, there's a right of reply. Sorry, Councillor Khan, if your submission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I genuinely like Councillor Prosser. I don't have anything against him, but I'm not even going to go down the route what he's been suggesting, because it seems to me that he's just been sitting doodling in that cross-party committee and not listening to a word that was said, and then maybe just woke up at the right time and put his hand up and said, yeah, I'll agree with his side, because I can't believe what he's suggested actually happened. But look, we have a choice here to approve this tonight and have some say in what happens in our city, or to play silly buggers and what will happen in the time that it takes from today to form a new plan. How many new applications are going to come in different areas? What will happen if the government imposes a local plan on us with LGR? I mean, are we going to have the same problems that some of the other parts of the county are going to come with us? Do we have this many HIMOs in Duffield or in Charleston or, Stansonfield? So let's think about what we're doing. Do we really want to wait another 2-3 years and in that time see developments all over Spondon, Mickleover, see more HIMOs that we don't need? As I said to you at the start of this, we have a choice today about where we tell developers to put their housing, not let developers take us for mugs and put an application in knowing fully well if we refuse it, we could be considered to be being unreasonable because the inspector will say you don't have a local plan. So I'm asking you all to forget about, our allegiance politically. Let's think about our allegiance to 260,000 people of this city. It's they who voted us in. It's their lives that we tonight could affect or make better. So, I've got nothing more to say about what Mr. Prosser said or anybody else, right? All I'm telling you is, let's not think about the 51 councillors here tonight. Let's think about the 260,000 people living in our city whose lives our decision will impact, either positively or negatively. That's within our hands tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Now I'll move to the vote on the minute extract. All those in favour, show of hands. And all those against? The minute extract has been carried. Thank you. That concludes our meeting this evening. Thank you to everyone who participated. I hope you all enjoy the game this evening just as much as I do. Thank you, Councillor Chambers. You was the first person I thought of when I wrote that email today. I'm sure we'll get the result we want against Argentina, but hopefully in September, when I see you all, it will be with a World Cup victory under our belt. So thank you.